never seen a smile so big on my little Lord lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bacon, I make plans for 7:45, and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Well, good evening, CFN. I'll tell you, I hope everybody's well. I know with everything that's going on with COVID right now, it's tough to remain positive. It's tough to remain, in a good way. But I'll tell you, you guys help me out every Monday. You get me through the week with these CFN lives, and seeing some new names like Marissa J pop in. I know you can't all the time join us, but you certainly make an effort, and it's nice to see MJ. It's nice to see some new names. Mike Blick, I haven't seen your name before. That's definitely a new name. The Fishing Fanatics, gotta love you guys. Your support means the world to us. But Peter D'Souza and his D'Souza Dobermans, hope all is well in the D'Souza house, Pete. It's great to see you guys and gals. As I said, it's tough to remain positive with everything that's going on around us, especially if you live in areas that are considered hot zones. Don't want to talk too much about it because it's being beat to death enough as it is. But your positivity, it means the world, and it's getting us all through this crisis. However you want to look at it, it's that kind of positivity here at CFN that is really helping us get through it. And big shout out to Barry and Sally. You guys share pictures on the regular. I don't know if you know Sally and Barry, but if you do, you know what I'm talking about. Some past pics, meet and greets with CFNers. It means a lot. As I said, right now with everything that's going on, we need a pick me up. And I can't say enough about their efforts in doing exactly that. This weekend was a huge pick-me-up, I'll tell you, in the Muskie world. Muskies Canada Inc., man, I tell you, they killed it. What a group to work with. We're going to have 3 of them on with us tonight talking about it. And, of course, the infamous Peter Levick. I tell you, can't say enough about him. Brian Pickering, he says it best. Probably one of the most professional individuals I've come across in the industry. No disregard to anybody, just Peter he's at a different level, and it was an honor to work with him and his crew. But a big shout out to some of you who, you don't even have muskie necessarily near your waters. And, Lloyd showing up from Saskatchewan on the regular, Bill, Sean Forche, Steve Shaw, Christina Kodaluk, Charles Durachi, all you guys and gals who shared and participated in all of the segments, all the sessions. It was great. Lisa Goodyear, who I consider a sister now, she mentioned it during our wrap-up session after we had we'd ended the broadcast, and said there was a lot of CFNers that showed up and left comments. And on behalf of all of you, man, I tell you, I can't thank you enough. I say it all the time about our CFN community, but you guys, I don't know, you make me proud, man. I tell you, it's very proud to be a part of. And everyone else who was very visible this weekend during the Muskie Odyssey, I can't thank you enough for your efforts. The positivity, as I said, that we brought to the M.C.I. Muskie Odyssey was amazing. Peter's going to let us know what they raised, or at least an approximate amount. And I know they're very happy over in Muskies Canada land. And there's going to be Muskies everywhere for the amount of money that they raise. So stay tuned for that. Another big announcement is we are going to be starting Cooking with CFN cook-off. The good lads over at Bake to Go Outdoor Flavors have sponsored this event. Stuart Brown, I'm going to be in touch with you in regards to this very, very soon. But it's going to involve Bake to Go Outdoor Flavor Mix and your imagination. And we have some big hitter chefs that are going to be doing all of the judging. Stuart Brown is going to be involved. Terry Snyder is going to be involved. Brad Frost and the one and only Cameron Tate is also going to be a guest judge. So not 100% sure how it's going to run just yet. But all I do know is I'm giving you a warning now. Make sure you have some Bake to Go Outdoor Flavors handy, because we want to see your culinary prowess on full display. And as I said, Bake to Go Outdoor Flavors, can't thank them enough for sponsoring this. It's going to be really cool. So that's upcoming. Stay tuned to that. This Thursday, I can't thank Fernando Sousa for doing what he did today. He reached out to me today and he said, Scotty, catfishing is becoming a very popular form of angling. And, no offense to CFN, and there isn't, none was taking, but I'd love to see a segment. I'd love for you guys to do a segment on catfishing, because it is becoming popular. And as you see with some of Fernando's picks, it's very popular to him. And much like we did with Christina, who wanted to see a ladies segment, and we have one tonight. And thanks to Yvonne and all of her incredible guests that she brings, we do that for our CFNers. We listen to you. So this Thursday, Trevor and Jason Barnucz have stepped up huge, and we'll be doing a segment on Thursday at 8 o'clock in regards to catfishing. So big shout out to Fernando for reaching out to me, and of course the Barnucz family for stepping up. And then right after that, this is the coolest thing. Braden Ta will be joining us from Misfit Lures. He's going to tell us all about his products, but he's also going to be doing a giveaway. It's $100 worth of Misfit Lures. And let me just share that with you now so you get an idea why you're coming on Thursday. So you're going to win that. And again, we're not sure how we're going to give it away just yet, but it's going to be worth showing up to learn a little bit about catfishing and possibly win some Misfit Lures. So that's Thursday starting at 8 o'clock. I invite all of you to stick around for that. And our good buddy Big Jim McLaughlin has a bit of a big announcement. Not sure of the date just yet, but of our next fireside chat is going to have quite a guest. So stay tuned for that. Jim's going to be announcing that to us, and I think you're going to want to wait and find out who it is, because it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. We currently have, this is really cool. Oh man, Michelle Avery, can't thank you enough for doing this, but we currently have a tentative date scheduled for our very first CFN meet and greet for 2021. I know, COVID, get it, totally understand. It's tentative, but late in July, we are hopefully going to be getting together. There are 2 vessels that have stepped up huge to put this on for us. It's going to cost $50 per person, roughly 6 hours out on the water fishing Lake Erie for walleye, outside of bringing a bit of an appetite and $50 and an empty cooler, bag of ice. That's all you're going to need to bring. But as I said, I can't thank these folks enough. Fishing Fanatics Charters, Michelle and Adam have stepped up huge. And of course, the second boat that I mentioned, Captain Matt Bolmeister of Lord of the Fins, will also be involved. I don't know exactly the number. Obviously, we got to wait for COVID and find out what's that all going to look like. But the end of July, as it is right now, it is the first tentative meet and greet that we're going to be doing for CFN Lake Erie. We're going to be doing a fish fry like we did the last time we did this. And we're going to try and get as many CFNers out on a charter and hopefully fill your freezers with some beloved Lake Erie walleye. So stay tuned to that. And the sign-up sheet will be posted. Again, we'll work out all the details. But end of July, keep that area of your calendar somewhat open, because we'd love to see you there. And last but not least, on the subject of COVID, Mike and I had announced the tentative start date of the CFN Fish Off, which of course is going to be May long weekend. We're working very closely with Shimano. We want to do the right thing. So does Shimano. So we are listening, watching, and we've got our fingers and toes crossed. We are hopefully going to run it, but there is a chance that we may not. So I want to make sure that everybody is prepared for good news and bad news. But the one thing I will say is Shimano has set aside some friggin' awesome prizes. So stay tuned to that, because you're going to want to listen, and you're going to want to stay tuned, because as I said, if it does run, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be huge, because I know a lot of folks are waiting to fish. All you guys want to do is fish, and I get it. So does this guy. Anyway, this past weekend, as we all know, was the Muskie Odyssey, put on by the one and only Muskies Canada and all their various chapters. And I'll tell you, the buy-in to this show was remarkable. And I want to bring in Yvonne and the very heavily esteemed Peter Levick. I tell you, Levick, is it Levick? Is that
Levick,
how you pronounce it? I always go Levick. I don't know what it is, the French in me, maybe. Peter, I can't say enough about being involved in something like that. And before we talk any more about the actual event, Yvonne, I just want to say this to everyone who's listening. I can't thank you enough for putting me in touch with such a professional group as Muskies Canada. This was a total honor to be a part of, and it all happened because you mentioned my name, and I got to meet some people I consider lifelong friends now. Mm-hmm. And one guy in particular that I have to say is one of the most professional individuals I've dealt with in this industry. No offense to anybody else, just Peter's a heck of a guy, and he kept it all together. But Pete, I'll let you take it from there.
Well, thank you, Scotty. I'm blushing a little bit, but this really was a really strong team effort all the way through. Everybody's trying to figure out, what do you do with COVID? Last year we were 3 weeks away from doing the Odyssey. We were all set up, ready to go, and we had to pull a plug because, of course, COVID hit. And physical expo, like we normally do, was not on for this year as well. So we decided to pursue an idea to go virtual, and that the whole emergence, what you're doing in CFN, and there's some new opportunities. And we were scared, like, how do we do this? We don't have that expertise. But, thanks to you coming on board, and Lisa from the Muskie Monday seminar series, and, some of our technical people that are within Muskies Canada, we were able to do it. We had over 50 speakers, and we'll talk a little bit about one of the best sessions in a moment, which was Yvonne's session on women in Muskies. We had every one of our 13 chapters was involved, and it was really, we called it Muskies Canada at Work, and it was kind of an overview of Canada's great muskie water from the Winnipeg border right across to Fredericton, and what's happening there in terms of not just being able to angle those waters, but what's happening behind the scenes, that they're good in the first place, or that we're struggling sometimes, working really hard other times to try and get the right regulations, to do the right research, to get science into the management of these fisheries. The support from within Muskies Canada, the support from the Odyssey team, which was outstanding. And Scotty, again, thank you for that. It was a terrific experience, and we were able to do 18 really, really good sessions. We had the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry, John Yakubuski, was there with us. We had the Minister of Natural Resources and Energy Development for New Brunswick was in one of the sessions as well. I think muskie people really appreciate that there's an important role for that apex predator, but it's so fragile that if you screw it up, it's really hard to get it back. We had presentations on 2 different restoration projects, and it's hard work. If you lose your muskie population, whether it's through invasive species or through loss of habitat, whatever it is, you got to work really hard for a long time to try and get that balance back in to get a healthy muskie fishery. So we're so delighted for the support from the CFN community. That was wonderful. And thank you for loaning us, Scotty, for not just the weekend, but for a lot of time planning and developing as well. So That was great. Yvonne, you know, we Muskies Canada really likes to talk as often as we can about how the Muskie community is changing.
Mhm.
And women as part of that community are a really important part. And you know, at the Odyssey in 2019, we had a terrific session. You know, what happened over the weekend, it was one of the best attended sessions. So
Mhm.
we were just absolutely delighted with that.
Yeah.
And
We're so, Scotty sent me a message after we were done and said that we had the largest audience of all the seminars on Saturday. And I immediately screenshotted the message, sent it to the ladies that were on the panel. I was just, all of us, like afterwards, we were so jazzed. Like we were just so pumped up. Everybody thought it went great. You know, the dialogue was smooth, and we really timed it, not intentionally, but timed it to the minute, you know, as to when we finish up and wrap up. And I think that the whole team did a wonderful job. And I just have to say thank you to Scotty, because he was behind the scenes, but he made a very, very professional show for us.
yeah, that
You
was,
know, and I appreciate that, Yvonne, and I've had the luxury of learning a few things from Lisa and Pierre, who again took StreamYard to another level. And you know, as I said, when it came to walking through some uncharted waters, I couldn't have picked a better foe, adversary, friend, sister for life, whatever you want to call it. Lisa, you are a gem, and I couldn't have done it without you. It was awesome, and I really appreciated your time together. And the one thing I will say, I took away as I was listening to the seminars, and I had the luxury of being backstage and listening to a lot of the content that was being delivered. But it's amazing, Peter, how much Muskies Canada has sponsored a lot of, like, say, the telemetry that went on in Lake St. Clair and some of these other research programs that you guys are hugely a part of. It's incredible.
well, you know, that's part of what we've been doing since we started 43 years ago. You know, we started with the log program to provide citizen science to the ministry to help with documenting the fisheries and, you know, catch per unit of effort and all of those kinds of things. But, you know, we've seen populations struggle. Lake Simcoe crashed, the Spanish River there, you know, was extirpated as well. And we started to roll up our sleeves and get involved. But research and science is so important. And so, you know, it was interesting because wherever you look at great musky water in Canada, most of it's in Ontario. And when you look behind the scenes, there's the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry right there. And they're working on stuff. They're doing monitoring, or they've got, you know, a fish population assessment underway, or there are other things that are involved. Or they may be doing work on other species where, with a little help from us and maybe some funds for helping to expand the program, it can be expanded to include muskellunge. So for us, you know, we're not a big organization in terms of our scope and size, but we are with ambition. We really want to take care of this fishery, and all the partnering that we can do to help, you know, bring together a whole cluster of resources. We work really closely with universities, for instance, and we have an education and research grant program that we do for students that are doing studying that way. I mean, for a little bit of support or a little bit of investment, we can get a huge return of value for the fishery that we're collectively to try and manage. So we partner as much as we can. And I can't give you an exact total on the Odyssey. We're still doing the numbers right now. But generally speaking, it was about twice as much as we made at the last Odyssey, which kind of filled in that gap that we lost last year. So it's really, really important. We were amazed at the generosity of the industry in making donations, the generosity of speakers in volunteering their time, and the generosity of people bidding on some of the things we had for sale in the live auction. In the last hour, we had 2 lures that were up. One went for $2,700 and the other went for $2,500.
Holy smokes!
Absolutely, it's extraordinary. Now these are collectibles. I mean, they really are. You know, you put them on a wall probably rather than, hook them up in a stump somewhere. But it just, the whole industry came together to support this, and we are so grateful, so touched by that. I think muskies are kind of a canary in the coal mine fish, and if the ecosystem is healthy, you have that top level of the trophic system where you've got an apex predator like the muskie, and it keeps the whole system in shape and healthy. But if we lose that, then it's believe me, it's way more expensive to try and get it back once it's gone. So
and in some cases it may not actually happen. One thing which was a huge takeaway, and I'm sure it would be yours as well, Peter, because there was so much that happened, so many epic events, so many holy cow moments. But one that really hit me was the commitment from the New Brunswick premier. And his commitment to making sure that muskies will stay and survive in the St. John River. I thought that was just, you don't see that kind of commitment from government very often.
Well, Scotty, that's been a huge shift in our working relationship with the province. Minister Holland clearly, and his government, they really value the outdoors, and angling is part of that. And it's been sad to see the decline of the Atlantic salmon all across the East Coast, not just in the St. John River, but it's been challenging. Well, here we have a new emerging potential sport fishery that is really exciting. And because of the forage base for Gaspereau or the suckers and the kind of things that muskies do eat, and they've been found not to eat salmon. There's been, tests and monitoring and science done around that. But these may become the world's fattest muskies. It's really interesting. They've been in the river for 30 or more years now. They kind of leaked out of Quebec. They're the St. Lawrence strain of muskies, and they are enormous. So, it's the length to girth ratio. Girth often is more than 50% of length, and you don't find that anywhere else. If you can get 35, 40% girth to length, that's amazing. So, I've been down there a few times and caught fish that were, we had a 41 by 22 inch girth. That's kind of the norm down there. It's really extraordinary. But the commitment by Minister Holland to really work with us and all of the community in New Brunswick to be able to help this become a really wonderful opportunity. It's a win-win-win for everybody. And so, I think there are great opportunities emerging all across the muskie world, and we're just delighted that we've got some wind in our sails, and this is really important. So we appreciate the support that we've had from everybody, from sponsors, from donors. Muskies Canada is a 100% volunteer organization. We have no paid staff. We all do it because we love what we do. All of the net proceeds from the Odyssey event go right back into the fishery and research, education, conservation, restoration projects, kind of like the ones that we were showcasing all throughout the event. So it's a labor of love, and we care a lot about these fisheries. And when you have a chance to really see and experience that, either seeing a muskie because it's followed your bait right up to the boat, or catching a muskie and then having the thrill of watching it swim away for another day, it's a super exciting and intense sport. And we do a lot of mentoring and education to help not only with the handling of the fish, but to get people involved in the importance of aquatic ecosystems and the proper place for muskies within that in a healthy lake or river system. So,
well, in closing, Peter, and I know you want to get going. It's been a long couple of weeks for you putting this Odyssey together, but I want to leave on this comment because, as I said, Rob Cadeau, the late Rob Cadeau, God love you, brother, good friend of mine. He told me how tightly knit the muskie community is, and I have to say that I saw it firsthand this weekend. You are a very tight-knit group, and it was an honor to be as welcomed as I was. It's I don't know, I can't put it into words because it was overwhelming, but it was just a lot of fun to be a part of. And again, Yvonne, I can't thank you enough for putting me in touch with this gentleman and that entire group, because it was an experience that I'll take to my grave.
Next year,
Not a problem.
9th is the key date. And Scotty, again, a big shout out and thanks to the whole CFN community for your support. We love you guys, and we really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Right on. Take care, Peter. All the best, my friend.
Yvonne, thank you for a great, great session. And to all the ladies, it was really, really good. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, we're very proud to be a part of it.
It was awesome.
I meant this. I noticed you guys are wearing your Muskies Odyssey shirt. So I do have one, but when they asked me my size, it was like 10, 15 pounds ago. So it was too. I tried to wear it on Saturday and it was too small.
You know what my problem is, Yvonne, is I always go bigger than I need to. And then what happens is I seem to fill into it. It's big when it first gets here, and then all of a sudden it's not so big anymore.
Yeah,
I got to get better at doing that as well. What I wanted to do, Yvonne, is, and I thought I downloaded it.
the video.
Yeah, I wanted to show. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, it's up here. So this is the segment. These were the ladies that were involved in the segment, and big shout out to Megan for putting this together. But this was really, really cool, and just a wealth of knowledge with this group of ladies. Great segment, as Peter and I both said, and you of course attest to as well. The ladies put in a huge effort, and some knowledge was shared. And I was talking to Alyssa after, and she wasn't really sure if too many people paid attention to the fly fishing aspect of it. The amount of messages I got after, she enlightened anglers to a whole new aspect of musky fishing with what she shared. So good on Alyssa. Do you have any announcements, OWA announcements, before we bring in Sam?
I do. I'm just going to post in the chat. It's a YouTube link to the ladies segment. So if you didn't happen to see it, excuse me, on Saturday, then you can go and have a look. As far as announcements go, tomorrow night we have an intro to steelheading seminar online. It's done through Ontario Women Anglers. It's a ladies only event. It's Rob Sesta from Drift Outfitters and Fly Shop from Toronto, who's going to be our presenter. And I was going to just, again, I'll put the link in the chat.
Okay.
And then people can register. I think we have like 35 ladies signed up already.
Oh, cool. Right.
And we have some door prizes to give away. And then the other thing is, we're trying to come up with social distanced events. It's like we have our Chester Cup, which is like a panfish shore fishing event. Of course, I'm leery of planning anything because you just never know, if these restrictions are going to be extended or not. So we do have a few things in mind. If we can, we'll definitely run them, but I'm not trying to plan too far ahead. It's really kind of week by week for most people.
It is. And even when we were putting the plans together, as excited as we were, Michelle and I, it was always that but, right? That big elephant in the room. What's COVID going to say about this? I know it's way off to the end of July that we're looking to do it. And it's going to be really cool for some CFNers to be able to get out on Lake Erie and enjoy some of that incredible walleye fishing. Yeah, if we're even allowed to, because right now we've got ramps that are closed, access to marinas that are closed. So it might be a pipe dream right now that we're even talking about it. But.
Yeah, ours are still open. We've gone out, just Tom and myself. We've gone out a couple times for crappie, but they're not quite in where we usually fish. So for now, we have access to fishing. The ramp's like 5 minutes from my house, so I'm not traveling very far.
Christina has a question. Yvonne, are the provincial chapters out of OWA?
You mean like a Manitoba chapter or whatever?
I may perhaps, yeah.
No, because we started it as a provincial organization, we're mainly focused on Ontario. But in saying that, I have talked to a number of ladies in Manitoba. Actually, Rosie Terrell that was on the show, she's in Winnipeg. And then another bunch of ladies that live like Kenora, Thunder Bay. And we've been kind of talking about having a Northern Ontario chapter. So it's still Ontario Women Anglers, but it's difficult for us to reach all parts of the province, like even pre-COVID. So we may look at setting up like a Northwestern Ontario chapter, maybe somewhere like Windsor, London area, because again, it's not an area that I know very well. So that's something that's been on the table for a little while, and I think that we're most likely going to start with the Northwestern Ontario group first. Yeah,
awesome. Well, without further ado, I want to share some of her pictures before we bring her in.
Yes.
Because I'll tell you, she had some gems. I had to reach out to her and give her accolades on her picture taking ability, because take a look at some of these pictures. And I just put them through a filter, just highlighted some certain things. But these are gorgeous pictures and gorgeous fish, man, I tell you. But we shared these on the weekend. Thanks to Samantha. It's beautiful, beautiful fish. These are fish of a lifetime for some.
I know.
Like, look at that shot, man.
That's a great picture. Like, there's a filter on it, but it's great.
Just
and that one.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, the fish just pops out of that picture. Incredible. And that was probably one of my favorite. Everything about it was just beautiful. But these are some incredible pics. And I know she has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to muskie. We're going to bring her in here right after all of these pics find their way to the end. She's got many of them, I tell you. She has got many of them. I love the catch and release shots too.
Yeah.
But we'll bring her in now. This is Sam Dadson. How you doing, Sam?
I'm amazing. Hi.
Well, it was an honor to be your producer on the weekend, and you shared a wealth of knowledge, so much so that we haven't had you on CFN Live yet, so I figured what better time to do it than right after the show, so we get to know a little bit more about Sam. Yvonne, I know you've got a plethora of questions that I'm sure you're going to pelt Samantha with, so I'll let you take it away.
Well, I up until the Odyssey, I didn't really know Sam very well. Last year when they were organizing the 2020 Odyssey, they had asked, that I form a panel, and the ladies that we had this year were the same group that I had initially asked last year. So it was great that they were all willing to still do it. And I know Sam and her husband run Dadson Blade Baits, and but those pictures that you just showed, I had no idea the extent of how she is involved in the musky fishing industry. So it's great to have you, like right after the Odyssey, to have you on the show. And I think that you probably would agree that we were very, very excited about our segment, and I think we all felt that went really, really well. But your thoughts? What did you think of the Odyssey?
I thought it was incredible. I watched some before and after our segment too, and it was a lot of knowledge, a lot of excitement. It's exciting that so much money was raised to go to a good cause. We love supporting anything like that. So that was awesome. And the ladies were so amazing. Like you said, after our segment, we were like on a high. We were like, oh my God, are you still shaking? We're like, yes. I think Alyssa said she couldn't feel her face, and I was like, me either. So it was awesome.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Yeah, you guys definitely hit it out of the park. And as I said, sometimes you don't know how well you do during a live broadcast like this because of where you're situated during it. But watching it and being your producer, for the first time I was able to sort of sit back and take it all in. And that's why I wanted to reach out to Yvonne right away and say, you gals, you nailed it. You did really well. The viewership
Yeah,
was phenomenal, and the interaction amongst all of you was fantastic. So, yeah, couldn't have been any better. You hit it out of the.
I'm glad, because of course I was so nervous, because normally when I do a show like this, you're on screen with me, and this time I was by myself. I knew you were there, so it was kind of comforting to know Scotty's there. But at the same time, I was like, okay, I'm kind of. I wasn't on my own. That's definitely for sure, but it was a little bit different for me. But anyway,
you had some great guests that helped out immensely, and as I said to Megan, I wish I had a 6-pack of whatever she's on.
I know.
Energy.
Spark plug, man.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
Holy crap. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted.
That's okay. Mostly what I was going to ask or talk about with Sam today is a lot of what we talked about in the Odyssey. So just maybe could you just kind of give the people a little bit of background on yourself, like how you got involved with muskie fishing. I know that you had mentioned that you're from Michigan originally, and you do fishing down there, and take it away.
Yes, I'm from northern Michigan, and that's kind of where my muskie life started. My ex-boyfriend was the one who got me into it. He caught one off of a dock and got hooked, and so then we started going. So I got my first couple that way, and then it was just like lights out. I mean, every moment that we had to go, we went. And then I slowly started meeting people in the community. So I went to Wisconsin, went to Northwestern Ontario. I've been fishing in Colorado, everywhere. I definitely enjoy Ontario's views a little bit more. But it's, everywhere for me, and I love it.
And I can't recall from the segment, but we talked about mentorship. And for me, that's a big thing. And no matter what we do, whether it's, fishing, go-karting, badminton, whatever. And could you talk a little bit about who mentored you, and who you've mentored along the way as well?
My biggest mentor is definitely Johnny. To have his knowledge and his knowledge that he has gained from knowing so many amazing people is insane. Sometimes I get so much that I have to write it down just because it's so intense. But him for sure. Will Schultz in Michigan, he was huge. He was my first in the muskie community guy that I knew. He was a part of Michigan Muskie Alliance, so they were a part of Muskies Inc. in the States. So that was kind of my first mentor there. And going to the shows, you meet so many great people that help you along the way. And but for me, my biggest thing is I love when people come to me and just want to talk about fishing. That's my passion. I love talking to anyone about fishing. And I give advice if I can. And I definitely like helping the ladies. I've fished with a couple people in North Bay. And one of the things that I taught her when we were fishing was to walk the fish around the boat. Don't let their head turn, especially if they're not hooked well. So she told me this last year that she had landed more fish than ever, wasn't losing many fish just because of me coaching her on that or mentoring her on that. So anytime I can make a difference, I love that. And I cry when people tell me it helped me. I'm okay, I'm crying now.
Awesome.
We after the conversation after our segment yesterday or Saturday was we are all fishing together. Yeah. We're going to Ottawa. I think the plan is to go to Ottawa and we're all going to fish. Lisa's going to, bring us on the Ottawa River. So
I cannot wait for that.
Yeah. I'll get to benefit from all of your expertise because I'm a novice. So I'm just, like I said, I only have maybe 20, 25 lures, and I don't even want to ask how many you guys have.
I want to say I have at least 400 bucktails, which is disgusting because I have as many crankbaits and I don't even want, it's insane. It's insane.
Go ahead, Scotty.
And really what, if you don't target muskie, it's a new appreciation I have for you muskie anglers, because as I said, you spend sometimes, a week's wage on some of the gear that you have to purchase in order to target these fish. And you have to make that investment, because if you don't, one, you're not going to be targeting them properly, because it's going to take a long time for them to come to the boat, or you're just not going to catch them. But some of these baits that you guys spend your money on, and the gear, I'm amazed. And I tip my hat to anybody who loves muskie fishing, because it's a full investment. You can't do it halfway. You're either in it or you're not.
Can you tell us a little bit about Dadson blade baits, the types of musky lures that you make?
Yes, we make all bucktails, inline and spinner baits. The spinner baits we kind of keep to ourselves, but anything from small to giant. We have 13s, we have 8s, and the spinner baits we have a lot of success on, and I think that's why we kind of keep it to ourselves. That's one I personally made, and I was going to sell it, and then I actually have it right here. Because I made it and I was like, I cannot sell this after I saw it in person. It's a beauty. But yeah, we have like our standards that we have online and that for people to buy. We have a lot of protos out all the time. We're constantly trying to find new tactics and little things that you can add to the blades with the growing pressure on the fish. I mean, it's hard to keep up. You have to constantly innovate, and that's what we're trying to do.
How long has Dadson blade baits been around?
Johnny started it in 2006.
Oh,
so it's been a long time. Yeah.
Excuse me. What kind of advice would you have for ladies who are maybe they already fish, but they've not yet targeted muskie before? What kind of suggestions would you give them to get started in that part of the sport?
I think number one is safety. I think I mentioned that in the Odyssey. Just because the teeth, I mean, everything you have to be aware of, your gear, you just want to have safe gear, safe net, gloves, the proper tools. If you catch a muskie and you don't have the proper tools, I mean, that's asking for trouble. So I think as being as safe as you can is the biggest part. And then the positive attitude, positive energy. As soon as you get frustrated, because it's a tough world catching muskies, just take a break if you're frustrated, give it some time, eat a s'more or an Oreo, and get happy again, because it's a lot. Like it took me, I think it was 3 months to even hook up with my first muskie, and I was fishing a lot. So it's a grind. Just stay positive and be safe.
So do you know how many 50-inch fish that you've caught so far?
So far, I believe I'm up to 9 now.
Wow. And your biggest? What would your biggest fish be?
My biggest is 56.
Holy smokes.
Yep.
It is. We do have a couple questions from the audience. The significance of the muskie on the wall. One, what size is it, and what is the significance of that fish, Sam?
That is actually Johnny's. I believe that one's a 56. This is a crazy story because he caught this fish, and then they were like, okay, windows open, we're on, release this fish, went over the same rock, I believe it was again, and landed a 54. And the 54 was fatter than that fish there. That's a 56. So back-to-back passes, he caught a 56 and a 54, and I want to get him for that one. Wow. I wasn't there. But yeah, it's insane. I don't have my fish here. My fish are all in Michigan. I have my 56 and my first 50 replicas.
Nice. Much to what Yvonne's question was asking. This is a great question from Bill. If you had to, if there was an angler or a person that you would love to spend a day out on the water fishing with, who would it be?
Pete Mena. I love his pink hat. I love his just comedy. He's amazing. Definitely Pete Mena.
That's awesome. Go ahead, Yvonne.
Do you have any, someone had asked about casting or trolling. Do you do one more than the other?
I am definitely a caster. I spent very little time trolling until I met my husband, who is the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And now that I've kind of learned the art of trolling and learned that you have to have just as much knowledge to catch them trolling as you do casting, I do enjoy, like, when it's 90 degrees and you're dying and there's no clouds in the sky, to take a break, eat some lunch, have a troll. But I'm definitely a caster.
Can you talk a little bit about, like, I know that there's musky anglers that won't fish like July, August. Can you talk a little bit about, water temperatures and as they increase and why it's so difficult on the fish?
Yeah. Basically anything over, I would say 78 degrees, you don't want to fish. Last year or last season, it was weird because opener, the water temps were 78, 80 degrees. So we didn't really get to have a great start of the season because of the water temps. And it's just unsafe for the fish when they have to fight in the waters that warm. They can't recover as fast or at all. Swim bladder issues, like once that temp hits around 78 degrees, for the safety of the fish, you definitely don't want to go in the morning. Like sunrise is probably your best bet, just because of obviously sun's down, cooler water temps. You can get out for the morning normally, but otherwise take a break, go catch some bass.
And there's more oxygen in the water when it's cooler as well, right? Which is probably hazardous to the fish when you're fishing in warmer temps.
For the most part, yes. There is a temperature where the water starts losing oxygen when it gets so low. So there is kind of a balance in there, but yes.
Incredible. Great question here from Fernando. And for someone who is not, a savvy musky angler, I don't know if I would suggest fishing for them at night, but since you certainly have a lot of knowledge behind you when it comes to targeting muskie, have you targeted them at night?
I have. One of my 50s came at night. So yes. Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. And are you a figure eighter or a double 10?
Figure eight or double 10s. I don't know what figure eight or double 10s are, I guess.
Well, obviously figure eight at the boat. I don't even know.
I don't know what a double 10 is.
I don't know what a double 10 is either, but
I don't either.
Figure eights, obviously, if you're a caster, is something that you do on the regular as you retrieve your baits.
Yeah, it depends on the water. So if I'm on, I'll just use waters here like the Kawarthas, because I know there's probably not going to be giant fish in there. I'll do a figure eight. When I'm on Eagle Lake or Georgian Bay or anywhere like that I know there's giant fish, I usually do an O. And if I do get them to come into my figure O and they're sluggish or whatever, I will maybe go into an 8 just to see if I can get them triggered or speed up or do it not. But I usually like an O just to be on the safe side if you're on bigger water, just so that giant fish has enough room to turn.
Right.
If you're doing an 8 and you don't have enough room for them, their whole body to turn, you might lose that fish. They might lose interest. So you don't want to give them that opportunity.
Do you belong to Muskies Canada Club in your area?
No, I need to. Probably Mississauga because I love Brian. I'm going to know him, yeah.
He's a dynamo, I'll tell you. Great question from Richard. Do you fish with the moon phases?
Depends again. Typically, yes. But on pressured water, they usually go off the moon phase just because that's when everybody's fishing. That's what they're used to. So it pushes them off of it a bit. So, which is kind of everywhere now. So it depends. Definitely, I always try. If they're not biting, I try something different because they're doing something different. But for sure, I think sunrise and sunset is honestly more important than the moon phase on pressured water for the most part. And then like prefrontal conditions. But honestly, I found now fishing in the States versus Canada that some lakes are completely different with that. Like some fish, they love the wind. Some, they hate it. They want pure sun. So honestly, you have to spend the time on the water to learn those fish and their environment and what they like and when they like to eat. And they're a pain in the butt. They are.
That's hilarious. Christina's asking, do you fish only the Dadson blade baits, or are there a multitude of tackle that you use?
For bucktails, I only use Dadsons, and that's just because my mental thing, like if I use somebody else's, I'm like, I'm not going to catch a fish. Which I know that's not true, but it's just because of Johnny and like the relationships that I have with everybody. So for blades, yes. Although I have friends that make blades, love them. I love those people. It's just my heart doesn't allow me to.
And what about plastics? Do you use plastics much?
Yeah, I use everything. I would honestly say my favorite thing to throw is like a bulldog or a Medusa, a Shadzilla. They're so much fun. They're so versatile.
Yeah.
You can have them up high, low, jerk them, pause them, reel them in straight. Like they are the most versatile bait. I would use them over a bucktail any day. Don't tell John.
I won't tell him either. Sean's got an interesting question. Is it cheaper to make musky baits than buying them? I would probably say it is if you're able to.
If you're able to, for sure. But if you want to get all the material is where you kind of start spending a lot of money. And it's time. Like I mean, you can throw beads on a wire, but has 10 of those 10 versions of that model been put out to get tested? Like you can only test one at a time. So it's kind of like, if you want to make the one, you got to make a bunch of variations, get them out there and see which one's going to produce the most for you in your area or whatnot. So yeah, for sure. But I let the pros do it because I don't know what I'm doing with like at least crankbaits and whatnot. I'd never do that.
And when it comes to when you fish, are you a morning bite person or an evening bite person?
I don't like to get up in the morning. So definitely sunset. I am not a morning person. If it's a morning bite, like on Eagle Lake, sometimes when we go up there, it's a morning bite and a sunset bite, and that's it. So I force myself, but I would rather fish all night than have to wake up early.
So what fishing goals do you have for 2021?
The kayak. I have a new kayak. And I've caught some musties in a kayak before, but I would like to break 50 in it and get it on video. Like that's definitely my goal this year.
Wow.
I can't imagine handling a fish from a kayak and like
I'm terrified. I am terrified, but it'll be amazing. I was with a few friends when I caught mine from a kayak, and my one friend caught like a 47. So it was definitely a team effort. So if I'm completely by myself, it's gonna be crazy.
Great question from Christina. Have you ever considered guiding?
Yes, I actually was planning on starting guiding next year on Eagle. Like I would love to guide on Eagle Lake. That's my favorite place in the whole world. But I think we're going to be an extra year from now. So 2 years. I'm hoping to be out there for a few months. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah,
like we had. Sorry, go ahead, Yvonne.
I was just saying, like we had Lisa on the show not too long ago, and there's lots for muskie, anyways.
Yeah.
So it would be great to grow that market.
I would love that.
She's a rare breed. That's why I said to you, Yvonne, and I mentioned what I said to you, to Lisa as well. I said, man, I can't believe that a guy hasn't gobbled her up, man. Like she's a guide, loves to fish, loves the outdoors, and she said, I have a girlfriend. I'm like, hey, right on. Like now it makes sense, because I would have figured a man would have put a ring on her finger like that. But no, she got a good laugh out of it. So
she's incredible.
Yeah, she is. Bill, when it comes to your blade baits, have you caught any other species, like say a giant walleye on them?
I personally have not caught a walleye. I did catch my biggest largemouth on one though. But that's it. I've caught one largemouth on it. That's it. I don't know why that is. I've heard of stories. I've seen pictures of people holding up bass with our baits. Like, what kind of lure is this? And I'm like, oh.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, as I said, as we take another look at all of your incredible muskie picks, I was honored to get ready for Saturday, and listening to you and the rest of the girls chatter about muskie, I learned a lot, as we did tonight, and I could see it in the comments. A lot of people really appreciated everything you brought tonight. Yvonne, again, I can't thank you enough for all you've done for these ladies segments.
No problem.
And we've again set the bar very high with Samantha. So on behalf of all of us here at CFN, to both of you, thanks so much for doing this, and we look forward to your next women's segment.
Yeah. We will have a giveaway as we normally do. It'll be based on something out of Sam's interview, and I'll send you that link, and you can get it posted tomorrow probably.
Fantastic. Well, listen, ladies, have yourselves a much needed and deserved break and rest, and we look forward to seeing you again next month.
Okay.
Thanks
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. See
All
ya.
the best. I tell you, some beautiful, beautiful pictures of muskie. And I'll tell you, another beautiful picture, and I can't wait to bring him in, is the illustrious Big Jim McLaughlin. But it just would not be the same if we didn't have our pump up theme song from Shimano. Here it is. Boom! Yeah, I tell you, nothing gets.
Hey,
me
listen, that was awesome. That was awesome.
Yeah, and I appreciate you guys being so patient behind the scenes, but there was a lot. And Peter, I just love listening to him, as I do you, Jim. He's very professional, and his approach is I want to say unique to a certain extent in the industry, because some of us can be, we shoot from the hip, we call it as we see it. Pete is a very calming person, and as excited as certain things can get and as bad as certain things can go, he was the level-headed individual that we needed, and kept the train on the rails. What have you been up to, my friend?
Not much.
Nice.
Lots of stuff. I got something really cool. That's one of the Dadsons I got that I'll probably never get wet.
Wow.
It was Pete Bosselman made it for me, and it's called the French Revolution because it's got French blades on it. And on the inside of the blade, they wrote
vintage. Wow, that's incredible.
So I'll probably use this something, but it's in Shimano colors, as close as he could match it, and it's just really cool. There's little things that you get that you cherish. They gave me that as a gift. I went and spoke to the Peterborough Club about fishing in rivers, and like everybody knows, I mean, I used to musky fish. I was like it was offside, and then I just I sort of drifted away from it. And it was really cool because when I ran out on you the other night to do the thing with John Anderson, he said to me, it was really funny. He said, guys always go from bass fishing to musky fishing.
Yeah.
He said, you went from musky fishing to bass fishing. And he said, you're really the only guy that I know out of the group that did that. And I said, yeah, Don't know why. I said, I guess it was the lure of fame. I don't know whatever it was, you know.
And I'll be honest, Jim, you know, as Luke has mentioned, yeah, Scotty has muskie fever. I'll tell you, it's hard not to. But listening to your segment with John, I was doing some things at work, and I was listening to it the next day. Just I had the phone in my pocket, and it was playing. Man, there was a lot. Like, I mean, you did some remarkable things back in the day, obviously with bass fishing. I've known you as a walleye angler, and that's where I fell in love with you, was during your walleye days. But some of the things that you did to target fish, you were talking about fishing, you know, waist deep in the river, casting out here. I mean, every opportunity you got, you were getting wet and you were fishing.
Yep, I would go the areas that we would fish, you know, until we got the boat. And I mean, I think I've showed you the magazine cover. I don't know if I have it here. Hang on. Yep. In fact, from this trip, when I was fishing with this guy who was Ken Keiko, the guy we talked about from the Japanese guy, Rapala used it years later. One of the pictures from that, and that's me in the Reno River. You can see the little weenie boat. That's Ken in the background. That's one of the little muskies we got in the morning. I just thought a little guy, you know, putting them back in. You can see I still had a mop of hair. Well, I still do, but a mop of hair. But you know, when you look at this picture, I just think it's pretty cool. When you see me standing on the back seat of the boat, up in the air, to be up high, to be able to look into the water and see them, you know.
Yeah.
And just fishing, and it's you know, it's a really, you know, there's nothing more fabled than muskie fishing. You know, there's nothing more fabled.
Well, and I have a deep admiration for muskie anglers. Like, there's no tomorrow after this past weekend, to say the absolute least, because it is a very tight knit group, and they very much welcomed myself and the CFN community. But to be able to target these fish, and I mean target them properly, it's an investment. You know, it's not for the faint of heart, and you go days, you may never even see a fish, but you know, the investment, it's a huge buy-in. You don't do this lightly.
Yeah, and you know, that bit about going days, that's depending on the body of water. You know, where you know, you pays your money, it takes your chances. There's a lot of places once you become experienced that you can go target them, and there's not too much of a chance you're not going to get a bite. You know. To go, like, I mean, I had when I guided, I had a 17 guide trips in a row of success with muskies, and I called that at least 2 in the boat. So I had, you know, like 17 days, not 17 calendar days in a row, but 17 guide days in a row, and it was it's something that still sticks in my head, because you got to remember, back when I was fishing for them was the old fish of the 10,000 casts. People were scared to fish for them because they haven't learned about it. The average guy now knows more, or girl knows more about muskie fishing now than the hotshots did 35, 40 years ago. The average person, you know, and that's the whole deal. And you know what I see from the muskie community too is I don't see the same competitive nature amongst them. There's a competitive nature, but a good competitive, like bass guys are always, you know, like they got hide that, you know, Bob's good. You know what I'm saying, though? Yeah. Guys come back to the weigh-in, and I mean, they all get up on stage at the end. What did you catch your fish on? Oh, a 3-inch. What's it? What did you catch your fish on? A 3-inch. What's it? What did you catch your fish on? A 3-inch. What's it? But I had to use a 2 in the afternoon because the bite was gone, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They're all doing the same damn thing, but they try to hide it, you know. And I remember Al Linder telling me stories about that, when him and his brother used to guide, and they would come back to the dock, and whatever color they had the most of worms to sell is what they put on the rods when they got back to the dock.
I love those stories. Those are wicked stories.
You know, things like, because you got to remember back then, I mean, you know, they were fishing, you know, they got their $35 or whatever it was for the day, you know, there was $7 on gas or whatever, how much ever it was, you know, and it's a whole different deal, right? But yeah, it was really cool. I caught a couple of minutes. A buddy sent me a clip because I was super busy on the weekend making gigs, and a buddy of mine got he sent me a clip of the ladies, and I thought to myself, wow, look at those ladies sitting there, and I'd be hard pressed to get, 3 or 4 of my friends that I could put up that, would be as good a musky fisherman as they are.
I was speechless. And this is the thing, like, to be a part of that segment and to see some of the pictures that, just Sam alone was sharing. And then the fact that Alyssa is targeting them with the fly rod, they came at it from all different aspects, but honestly, my head was pounding after the segment, because the amount of information is much like when you go on a rant and share a whole bunch of stuff, we either get writer's cramp or, our head explodes. But the amount of knowledge that those ladies were able to put forth, and let's face it could be a very intimidating fish. Fishing in general, I think for ladies, maybe not so much now, but it was intimidating to get into, to take a liking to fishing, and then to take it to the next extreme and target those, behemoths.
Yeah, and to believe, I want to get into musky fishing, but I got to take 10,000 casts before I catch them. Yeah. Why do it then? And then people just learn that knowledge is the key.
Amen.
Once you learn about the fish, the seasonal movements, their habitat, what they do, like you heard her talk, Sam talked about all the, the different lakes and the different things that you would do on the lakes and stuff like that. You heard me talk. One of the major things you heard me talk was the way the Rideau River, you don't get a boil from a fish anymore because it's crystal clear now. You see them now. They're right there. They see you, everything.
Yeah.
When I started fishing there, that water, you would hold a Lindley musky tanda with fluorescent orange blades, and it would go this far under the surface. You would still see the wire where it attached with the leader, and you couldn't see the lure.
Incredible.
That's how murky the water was. So you'd bring the lure in, you'd be guiding. The guy would bring the lure and wind it back to the boat. He'd lift it out of the water, and there'd be a big swirl at the side of the boat because they were coming to it.
Yeah.
Now we see these fish. Now we automatically do turns and figure eights and things like that almost every cast, or a big circle or something. It's just something that we do. It's built into you. Like when I get out and fish with Mark Thorpe, it's really funny because he's always putzing around. Like, we have a great time when we fish together. Most of the time we troll it. Sometimes we cast. And if I bring the lure in and I don't do a turn or a circle or a figure eight or something, he'll slap me in the back of the head. He'll sit there and watch. Or else he'll wait about 15 minutes and he'll get me retrieving something slowly, like a big swim bait or something, and he'll tap the end of the rod sticking out the back of my arm. And then he doesn't say anything. I just hear him. You can hear him snickering because he'll reach over with the butt of his rod, my back's turned, to just touch it. And you think it's something hitting the line. Yeah.
The game we play, it's true. And Alicia, for the number of female anglers that we get to see on a regular basis via social media, and now through events like we had this past weekend, you never underestimate the value or work that you ladies are doing to break the barriers that other women may have or see when it comes to either getting into fishing or targeting large fish like that. Because the one thing that I said to all those ladies, you have no idea the value that you brought to ladies who may be, sort of not sure about possibly going after fish of that size. It's amazing. As I said, I say it all the time, every chance I get. You ladies rock, and you do some great things.
And the thing about it is, Scotty, they're not just learning about it.
Yeah.
They're taking it to the lake and doing it. You know how cool it is to see a girl back a boat down, tie it off, and she's alone, and she's going musky fishing?
Yeah.
Like, my life is complete. The year is complete. I don't have to catch a fish that day. I just think it's so cool to see them just coming and doing it. They don't have to have a buddy with them for support.
Yeah.
They're out there with those, mean fish. You know what it is. It's
so true.
They're nasty fish.
Absolutely.
You got to be careful. You get a 50-inch fish stuck in your arm or your shirts or in your jeans, like I had happen, and it's you don't realize how powerful they are.
Yeah.
They are powerful. They're not in the water anymore. When they flail out in the air. It's not just a big lazy shake underneath because they have to move the water. When they only have to move air, look out.
Yeah. It was nice too, Jim, to see how involved Shimano was in that event, the front and center, and there was lots of product that they were auctioning off, but it just shows to what Shimano gets themselves involved in, the work that this crew did, as well as the Muskies Canada Inc. Program and group. It was incredible the amount of money that they've spent to help assist in the rehabilitation, the research, the restoration of muskie across all our Canadian waters. It's just incredible.
Well, they've always been involved like that. Have you been to a Muskie Odyssey?
That was my first one.
Well, it's okay. When you go, and it's absolutely amazing to see guys go in. They're looking. They see stuff. They buy it. It's just incredible. It's just, it's like once a year they get to do something. Like there's a million sports shows for, where it's all bass and walleye and crappies and pike and musky stuff too, but whatever. But when they walk in that room and you look around and it's only muskies.
Yeah.
These guys enough. Just like they want to lock their credit cards in the trunk.
it's
when they go in, because
did you hear, like, and obviously as Peter mentioned, it's going to be an heirloom. It's not something that's ever going to see water, but somebody $2,700 on a bait. Bill, this is a great question, and I'm glad you asked this because it kind of got me off train of thought of what I wanted to get to. But listening to you talk about back in the day fishing with John was incredible. It was a real trip back on memory lane. But back in those days, and you guys were talking about the 4.5 Merc that you had on your 16-foot tinner, and it was just incredible.
16. It was 11'6".
Okay, all right, even small.
Wasn't even 12.
So how? Like, I don't even want to know. How would you navigate in a boat that size? Because let's face it, Jim, you're a big lad. Like that.
I stood on the back seat. Yeah, I stood on the back seat. The picture I showed you. I stood on the back seat. The seat was this wide. I'd stand there all day.
Incredible.
That's why I have tremendous balance. I should say I did have tremendous balance. And like when I fished in bass tournaments, I used to drive Rocky nuts because I would stand in front of the console, like the driver's console. There's a little triangle there. I would get perched in there right in front of the depth finder. I just felt comfortable there.
Wow.
And I would stand on the edge of the boat all day. It's just what I did. It's the way you were. So for me to be standing on that seat was nothing. It's what I did, and it was a real stable little boat too. It was a great little boat. I think it got stolen. I was heartbroken. I had that boat, saw more fish, saw more lakes. Heck, we went in that boat. We must have done some days. I bet you we put on over 25 miles in that boat in the water. Launch it somewhere and go. We went to places in Quebec that had muskies that nobody knew about, great big giant lakes, and we'd go around and we'd look for a spawning cove. There was no maps, there was nothing. You'd drive around the boat with a pair of glasses looking. You'd see a spawning cove, you'd go over to the spawning cove, pull out in front of the spawning cove just like bass fishing, and start fishing and take it from there. And we had a lot of days where we came home. We were happy that they sold beer at the corner store in Quebec, for further rival. But I mean, there was a lot of days that we also came home with great big smiles on our face too.
That's awesome. But back in the day,
I see Bill asked that question there.
Yeah.
What's your favorite bait? It was.
You're right, Anthony. No, yeah, the old tin can memories. Absolutely.
I still got the box here from being with John. I mean, it's obvious what some of these have been through.
Oh, yeah.
And these are like old Vibraxes, absolutely ancient,
Jeez.
I don't know how many times I've tied the bucktail back on those because there was nothing left. And the old, my favorite of all, the old Lindy Muskie tandems.
Yeah, you talked about the tandem. That was,
that right there, I dare say there was probably 25 muskies caught on this, maybe more, just one particular lure. But we absolutely whacked them, and it's I was just a little over 600 muskies I caught myself, but I've never caught more than 5 in a day. I think I've done it 5 times, but I've never caught more than 5 in a day. And I had well over 1,000 in the boat, counting, clients, the fish that they would catch in that. But the really cool thing about it is I tell that to Mark Thorpe, and he'll look at me and go, "Yeah, I had a slow year last year. We only got 284."
Jeez.
Or something like this, Yeah.
One question, because there's a lot of viewers here that don't have muskie anywhere around them. But if they were, say, pike anglers, is there a big difference with targeting pike than targeting muskie?
Yeah, it's not the same beast.
It's not the same.
No, they're completely different.
Yeah,
completely different fish.
Absolutely. Bill says, "Hope you had a trustworthy buddy to counterbalance you in the boat." I can't believe that was an 11-foot tenor.
Yeah. So, anyways, when I started fishing bass tournaments, it was with that boat, and I had a little electric on the back, and it was a motor guide Brute, and I'd go to tournaments, and guys, they didn't really have the bass boats yet. They had Tuffy boats, and they had like the early Rangers that had the high sides on them, the walleye boats. A few guys had those and some other things, and there was guys that had like aluminum type bass boats when they were just starting to arrive, right? And I'd pull up, I'd take the boat off the roof of the truck, or the car. I'd put it down, and I'd run around and find all the rocks that I could barely carry, and put them in the bow between the front seat and the bow to hold the nose of the boat down, so I could stand in the back.
Oh man!
And then there were certain lakes they had a lot of tournaments on. So when I was coming back in at the end of the day, I used to always stop at the same place and drop the rocks off in the water. And a number of times after a couple of years, 2 or 3 tournaments a year, I started catching fish off the rocks that I would dump in. That drove guys nuts.
What an incredible story. That is incredible.
I'm not just talking fish. I mean, it would go, you'd come in, you'd be like 200 yards from the launch. You'd go up to the front of the boat. I'm talking rocks that, me back as a young kid could barely move. And I rolled them out of the boat into the water. And eventually I went back. I had a perfect line to find them. And when it was sunny out, you would see them. You could see some of them on the bottom. The number of times that I would come back and stop like 50 yards away from that edge up with the electric, throw a jig in there and catch a 4 or 5 pound largemouth. I used to use a great big cooler for a live well. I'd reach in the cooler, take out a 2 pounder, hold it up so they all could see it, throw it back in. And
incredible.
It was all fun.
Never heard this story before. And I tell you that this is why we have you on every Monday, buddy, because you have a wealth of knowledge, and as I said, what you shared during John's segment in regards to your muskie years, I was glued. So if anybody wants to hear it in its entirety, I invite you to go over to John Anderson Outdoors and listen to the interview that Jim did with him. It was phenomenal. Some of the stuff that you guys brought up was incredible.
And back when I was muskie fishing, it was something like I've gotten to know Pete Bosselman pretty good, who makes a lot of the Dadson stuff. And he's one of their, I guess you would call him a master builder and whatever. And back then we would buy lures, and you'd catch 3 or 4 muskies on them, and they'd be all chewed up and done. And you'd look at it and go, wow, I spent $10.95 on that, which was a lot of money 40 years ago, a lot more for a lure, And sometimes you could use a couple in a day or something. They'd be all busted up, the wires would be bent, So when you can buy quality stuff now, it's not just the fact of paying money for it. It's the fact that you continue to fish with it for so long. That to me is worth it. That's like going up buying a Tranks or something. And then see there, there's something else with the muskie world like that. Like the oversized handle and stuff that I mean, that was like one of the biggest innovations ever. Adding that big handle. Yeah. For people. And if you're going to fish these big blades, you have to have, you don't have to, but it just makes. I mean, I see guys come off the water. They fish for 45 minutes and they're done because they're trying to do it with an old-fashioned reel with a little double hand. You can't do it.
No. Luke, you're a gem. That's the link to the interview with John that he did with Jim.
Cool.
Guys, copy that link. It's worth it's a trip down memory lane, and some of the stuff that you explain in that interview, as I said, had me glued to the phone.
When I was done and I went into the living room and Tammy looked at me, she said, "How'd it go?" And she was doing some quilting stuff there, and I looked at her and I said to her, "I enjoyed that like so much."
You could tell.
It was incredible. It just it's almost emotional.
Yeah.
For you to go back, and it's not just telling one quick story or talking about one quick event or thing. It's going. We spent like I think it was an hour we spent. You know, like he said, we're supposed to be over at 8:30, and it was like 10 to 9 or something. We're still talking, and it just it's a hoot. Muskie fishing's a hoot. I'm so happy to see that this was successful. So happy to see. So cool to see the ladies out there.
Yeah, it was the who's who of the muskie world, and as I said, they had 19 sessions. They were just jam packed with all kinds of great information, some great videos, resources, some of the stuff that the Ontario Ministry brought as well with the telemetry program. Phenomenal. They talked about some of the new advancements up in the Spanish River and how they're going to change some of the restrictions and guidelines, and there's just a lot of stuff was shared this weekend. And if you want to learn anything about muskie, go back and to the YouTube channel. You can go through, pick which ones you want to watch, but they were all good. And
we had a story years ago in Just Fishing when they had the big chemical spill in the river up there.
Yeah, and
the kids in the local schools raised muskies in tanks. They got a muskie that was like this big, if I'm not mistaken. And there was a big story written about that. A guy got in touch with me and said, "Hey, would you put this in Just Fishing for us? We want to try to get some publicity." And they actually got businesses to sponsor a fish. And it was really cool because they had these little muskies and you saw them get bigger. I don't know how big they actually got in these tanks. They can't grow that much, but it was just a wonderful thing to see. And they released them back in the river. And I fished in the Spanish River a lot in recent years. Not a lot, but I've been there. And walleye fishing, I've caught several nice muskies. Like fishing that, not giants, fishing the high teens, they'd be weight-wise, 12, 15, 18 pounds. I did get one that was really nice one day. We never even brought it in the boat. It had a jig in its snout, a bucktail, with a minnow in its nose. And we'd just been dragging the jigs on the bottom really slowly. And, you felt the tick. You thought for a second you had a big walleye until it took off, eh? And, we got it up. It was, I don't know, it was probably 48 inches. So we just took the pliers to the nose and pulled the jig out, and away she went, eh? But
well, keep in mind, too, the Ontario record, if I'm not mistaken, they were fishing with a 4-inch Rapala.
Yeah.
Go figure, right? So, the incidental catches are definitely there.
Opportunists.
Absolutely. Bill's asking, when are we going to get fishing, you and I? I tell you, Bill, it can't happen soon enough. But, on that note, Jim, what do we always say when it comes to how people should be conducting themselves during COVID? We're not getting it right, and the cases are going up. As much as we want to fish together and do some of the things that we absolutely love, we have to be cautious at this time because it's completely out of control.
Yeah, it's and you can say anything you want about it. You can disagree, you can agree, whatever it is. Everybody on Facebook really needs to settle down, stop yapping, because it doesn't do any good. They're all on there bickering and fighting about it, and I don't see any of them with pandemic expert after their name. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and it's
absolutely
a little bit more discretion on everybody's side about being in groups,
Yeah.
Like I had a thing happen the other day in the morning. I went down and I fished for a little while in the river here, and I didn't catch anything. I went through Tim Hortons and I grabbed I grabbed the coffee and the tea for Tammy to come back up here. And it was about, I don't know, 6:30 maybe. It'd been late for half an hour or something. And I actually heard somebody saying, I can't wait to get out of here because we've got 16 guests for dinner. It's mom and dad's 40th wedding anniversary. And I thought, you know, bringing people together like that into a house for dinner, and it's probably not a family, even if it was, you know, they're probably coming from all over the place. They're probably all old or older.
Yeah.
You know, one person gets it, and they're all gone,
and this is the unfortunate downside to what's going on. And I won't go into great detail because it's not for everybody's business. But Michelle needs a surgery, and she can't get it. It's been postponed, and she really needs this surgery. So unfortunately, because our ICUs and our healthcare professionals are so busy dealing with this incredible virus.
And these health people, I saw an ICU nurse from Toronto, and they had her doing an interview on one of the news stations, and they're talking to her, and she takes off her mask, and her face is all scabs from wearing a mask all day, and she starts to talk, and she gets emotional, and she has to sit in a chair. These people are fractured, dealing with idiots that, like a lot of, you know, it can happen by accident. There's no doubt about it, you know. Mm-hmm. But like I've always said, and I'll stick to my guns, and it came out of Osterholm's mouth. These germs don't have feet.
Yeah,
we carry them around, and as long as we continue to do it, there's no argument against that. There's nothing, you know. Like Amen. We were down to less than 300 cases a day. I think it was 330. No, it was about 335 back in the summer for the whole country. And God knows where we'll be in a couple of days. And I mean, when you look at the world, by the end of this week, the numbers in the world are going to be higher than they ever were. And and I was listening to Osterholm explain in his podcast this week. He said, you can't let the rest of the world run wild because this is where the variants come from. So, you know, we don't have our own variant. I don't think. I haven't heard it. But now they've got this one from Brazil, which didn't walk here, you know, so at the airport, you know, it's, but I feel so sorry for the healthcare workers.
Amen.
I feel so sorry for them. Like I'm sure some of those people are going to be messed up for the rest of their life.
I've said it to anybody who cares to listen. The PTSD that's going to come from this, I think, is going to be worse than the virus itself.
That doctor that they have on there, he's a really nice guy from Toronto. He's one of the head of one of the big hospitals there. Bochar, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah,
Bogosh.
Yeah, there was one day he was on, and he had bags under his eyes, and his speech was almost slurred. And then he told a story about having just spent an entire shift with, I think it was 5 or 6 other ICU workers to save a lady's life. And he said, and we did. And like, at least it had a happy ending.
Yes.
But I mean, this guy was like, they were like licked. Yeah. You know, they may as well be in a UFC fight. Well, at least, geez, a UFC fight to be better when you're done.
There's an end. There's an end to it. Absolutely.
These guys just get up and go again.
Absolutely, buddy. Listen, it's as always. It's
who are we getting?
What? Oh, yes. There we go. Let's end it on a great note.
So, anyways, we had
Jim has a great announcement to make, and
we had a date picked. It was going to be this Friday, and then the fish started to bite. So I was asked in a phone call, "Have you advertised it yet? Did you put it out there?" And I said, "No, not yet. We were like just waiting for the final okay on the time and everything, eh?" So as soon as everything settles down the next few weeks here, we're going to get Al Lindner on for an hour.
Yes.
So he's, to me, is like the top of the ladder.
Yeah.
The top of the ladder. And we'll have him on for an hour. Jimmy Lindner says to me, well, maybe we get him on for 2 hours. I don't know. He said, if you last that long. So,
well, as I said, I will make sure I do my homework. But the one thing I will say about Al is he has a lot to say. And I might just let him go because, I mean, listening
turn
to
his
him.
Mic on, turn mine off, turn yours off. And Let them
Absolutely.
go.
Absolutely, buddy. Well, thanks for getting that set up for us, buddy.
Yep.
We'll get the
That'll
date
be a hoot.
as soon as possible. But yes, the one and only Al Linder will be joining us on a fireside chat. Me and Jim. And as always, buddy, thanks so much for doing this every Monday and just being you, bud.
Stay safe out there, folks. All is.
Right on, buddy. You take care.
You good? Yep.
Without further ado, let's bring in Lawrence Gunther because I know he has a whack of stuff to talk about. The one and only Lawrence Gunther. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, buddy. How are you?
I'm before I forget, I can't thank you enough for the work that you put into that documentary, What Lies Below. My friend, the feedback that I've been receiving from our CFN community is they were so taken back by it. And some of them have even gone so far as to say, is he going to do another one?
Yeah. Oh, that's really nice. You know, yeah, that project, that was a huge project that went on for years, right? Yeah.
And I said, like, Lawrence was probably exhausted after doing it because of how, just geographically the amount of area that you span to do it. But you didn't want it to end. You honestly didn't want it to end. Phenomenal.
There were stories we didn't include. Like I'm thinking, and there's huge chunks of the stories that we filmed that didn't get in, right? So like in the end, the stuff that was left on the edit room floor, it's nothing left. No, there's no film being clipped or anything anymore. But there was a lot left, and I'm thinking, oh man, I got to dig up those scraps and put that together. That's a documentary in itself, Yeah. But yeah.
Dude, it left us speechless. And anybody who's watched it, the reaction is the same. And they've, as I said, some of them have gone so far as, please tell me he's going to do another one. I think it was Brandy Eaton was asking me on the weekend, please tell me he's going to do another one. I said, I don't know, I'll ask.
Well, I've been doing these Lake to Plate ones. It got stalled a little bit now with what's going on, but we got a couple done. They're shorter, 30-minute kind of, but more upbeat, Like, yeah. I think when we filmed that, it was a different time, right? It was a different time when I pitched that out. There was a lot of climate denial going on, a lot of denial of everything. And really it needed some little shaking up a bit. And I figured, well, we all hear these environmentalists and all these people yapping. But we never hear from the people that live, that are really truly affected, right? Yeah. So I said, I just got to go out and find those people and stick a camera in front of their face and a microphone and let them talk and tell their stories. And if they said stupid stuff, we cut it out, Like we interviewed over 80 people and not all of them made it in there. That's for sure. There was a lot of great people that should have been in there and some that I'm glad didn't make it in there, but
and really that's got to be the hardest part, right? Like so many people had so much to do with putting that documentary together. And as I try to do, and it's not easy to thank everybody that has a hand in what goes on with CFN as they did with What Lies Below. I can only imagine how hard that would have been to not include everyone.
Well, Big Jim's in the credits, I credit him for some of the resources he pointed me at and some of the information he brought to my attention. And he emceed the Ottawa screening when we premiered it here in Ottawa in an actual movie theater. So he was my MC. So, Big Jim, man, 2 thumbs up all the time.
All the time. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, listen, you have a lot of stuff that you want to talk about today. I'm going to let you go.
Okay. All right, man. So first thing, Earth Day, April 22nd. What is Earth Day? I have no idea, but it started in 1970. It's Earth's birthday, I guess, according to the United Nations. But you know what? I just love the concept. I'm a bit of a space junkie. I always follow the outer space stuff, and I have a telescope, believe it or not. But I thought, hey, Earth Day. We should have an Earth Day champion of the year. And I interviewed Alexandra Morton. She's been at this for 25 years, poking big industry and government in the eye out there on the West Coast in respect and trying to save the West Coast salmon, right, against all these open pen fish farms. And she wrote a book called Not on My Watch. And so I contacted her. I finally got through to her through her publisher, and I got her on Bluefish Radio. So that's out now. And we got that link out there, you guys. So check out the Bluefish Radio Show and check out that interview with her, 30-minute interview with her. And we talked about what it means to be an advocate. You know, I said, Alexandra, everyone knows the issues with the West Coast salmon and all of that. You don't need to educate my listeners. But let's talk about how do you get involved with this, and how what has it meant in your life? What have you lost? What have you gained? Why did you do it? And man, oh man, I tell you, this is a woman that just tough as nails, tough, and lost a lot of friends, lost a lot of people because she lives life right on the edge, right? You know, people are always trying to take her down. Anyways, very powerful individual. Inspirational, and talk about, you know, giving her life to a cause. She gets my vote for Earth Day Champion of the Year. There's no doubt about it. A lot of people have great things to say about her, so check her out, man. If you want some inspiration, want to find out what it means to be an advocate. It's not all, you know, media cameras and interviews. This isn't like walking on the moon or anything. No, this is,
you know, no, and you see that. Yeah, I mean, I saw the dedication this weekend, you know, up close, front and center with Muskies Canada Inc. and the work that they do, and you know, as you said, it's all volunteer. There's no accolades. There's no trophies for any of this. It's just a love of the fish. It's a love of the environment and making things better than they are. And who doesn't support that?
Oh, but you wouldn't believe it. Like what she lost, and the people that turned their backs on her, the environmentalists that turned their backs on her, absolutely astonishing. Absolutely.
Is that right?
Oh yeah. Because they're afraid. People get afraid, right? People, when government starts spreading rumors and telling lies and threatening and painting you like you're some sort of nut job. Yeah, and you got boats following around with blacked out windows, you know, secret police, secret security hired by the fishing companies, the marine companies, and so on, following you around, harassing you. People get scared. Yeah.
Speaking of government, they unveiled the budget.
Yes.
Today.
So there's some things in there. There's some. You know, I think 2 years ago the last budget came down. It had an $18 billion deficit. This one's got a $117 billion deficit. It's a lot of money being spent. They want to create 500,000 job training opportunities and jobs in the new sector. They want to help transition people from jobs to new jobs, right? Jobs that were lost because of COVID-19, maybe downturns in the oil industry and so forth, into new green jobs. They've got a tax credit, 50% tax credit for companies that want to do something in the green industry. For homeowners that want to do an environmental upgrade to their homes, you can get up to a $40,000 loan, interest-free, no grants, but maybe, who knows what will come. But for now, it's up to a $43,000 interest-free loan to do, you know, maybe put a solar heater or a heat pump. You know, some people are saying instead of putting an air conditioning into your house, put a heat pump in. Way more environmentally friendly. And you can heat and cool your home all year round with a heat pump, right? So there's some cool stuff for sure. Well,
listen, you know, it's been mandated. I think, you know, it's common knowledge that, you know, the fossil fuel industry it's not going to be like it is right now in 10, 15 years. Like they're going to outsource all of this fossil fuel use very, very soon. So, you know, we almost need to sort of jump, you know, on these kind of advantages and opportunities as soon as possible, because you don't want to be the last one to the dance, right? Like at the end of the day, if they're giving you money to switch over now, it might not be such a bad thing. Geothermal, there's a lot of great positives when it comes to geothermal heat, and if they're giving out money to do it, to switch over, you might want to take advantage of it.
Like you get it back in your home value, right? You know, because your heating and cooling costs go down. So there's advantages. They've got some really cool things going on. They've got $17 billion dedicated to greening up the place. You know, I'm not sure what all that means, but that could mean anything, I guess, from, you know, maybe some infrastructure, shoreline habitat, you know, hopefully that type of thing, taking out old dams, you know, creating better connectivity between rivers and lakes and so forth, restoring wetlands. So that's pretty cool. $17 billion commitment to that. I didn't get too far into reading about the 30 and 30, 30% oceans, 30% terrestrial and fresh water being set aside as sort of preserves. So far we've been doing that in Canada. I think we got up to about 20% on the oceans and land, and it hasn't meant a great deal yet because they haven't tightened a lot of that up. So there's been some criticism. I mean, they're still allowing deep sea fishing by big commercial fishing boats to happen in these marine sanctuaries, and oil drilling and things like that to happen. So like, what's the point, right? What are you doing here? So
absolutely.
So they got it. Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that because I didn't know how that was going to what their plans were with that. So hopefully, I'm sure you'll dive headfirst into it and figure it all out for us. But it's a little bit of grayness there, gray area.
I've written some articles for Outdoor Canada magazine on that subject already. In terms of the testimonies at House of Commons and the Parliamentary Committee, and some of the experts that were brought in and interviewed them for Bluefish Radio. So this is something that's going on. It's no surprise, but definitely watching what they're doing in the United States in terms of the fishing community down there and what they're asking of their government down there in terms of the 30-30 commitment, and I think as long as we're heard, as long as we have a voice, that's the key thing, is get a voice. So Bluefish Canada is working hard getting that voice with the different departments and the commissions and the committees, and I think we're getting there. We're getting some good recognition on that front, so we'll keep that and keep guys informed on that for sure.
That's awesome. Now I know that you have done a little bit of research on the latest announcements of the province. I don't know about our federal government, but definitely the province of Ontario when it comes to COVID. Is there anything you can update us with?
I listened to the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters AGM, and the president of OFA interviewed the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry, and he committed that there would not be any sort of extension of the seasons, of fishing seasons, opening days, or anything of that nature. So everything's on track to open when it should be opened. At the same time now, the Ontario government's announced that there's no camping allowed on any provincial parks, any provincial crown land. There's no camping, whether you're in a provincial park or you're just bushwhacking and camping on land. That's forbidden. You can go on the land to exercise. A lot of municipalities have closed boat launches again. So that's starting to happen. Marinas, they're not allowed to launch boats for day use. The full-size marinas. So that's put down now. So yeah, there's some restrictions that are hitting close to home, but as far as traveling to go fish, to go hunt, we almost had that issue there about the police being able to pull people over and say, where are you going? But no one said anything, and it's not on the OFA website. You're not allowed to leave your home to go on a little fishing trip and back the same day. I think if you're traveling, several days or something, you might not be welcome, but I'm not sure what the rules are. No one's publishing any rules on that yet. You can't go out of the province, but how far you can travel within the province, I think you got to use common sense for that, right?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I mean, let's be honest, a lot of it is it's clear as mud. Some of what's come down the pipeline. Incredible to see the OPP and our border police, down in Windsor. If I'm not mistaken, boats were going from American waters to Canadian waters and vice versa, and they were all fined, and some hefty fines were handed out last week. Holy smokes! Yeah,
and you wonder, well, I don't even want to get into that, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, or I have no idea.
Absolutely.
But it's there's no perfect science in any of this. You do what you think you got to do, and you try what you can, and you got your people who elected you that you have to be accountable to, and that's politics, right? So it is what it is. You follow the scientists, listen to the politicians, and try not to get a ticket. That's what I think.
That's the best advice anybody could give that we've heard tonight. Keeping it on a muskie theme for our beloved Muskie Canada folk. On your Feel the Bite segment, you wanted to talk about jigging for muskie, something that some people haven't done yet.
Yeah, Bondi baits, right? Like the John Bondi's invented those big fat rubber minnows with all the hooks on them and the little attractors and spinners and so forth. And these things can get 6, 7, 8 ounces, 6, 8, 10 inches long, and you could jig them. Very popular ways for jigging for lake trout, and a lot of people. He invented them for jigging muskie on the Detroit River.
Mm-hmm.
And we're starting to see people now and I've been doing this on the Otto River and the St. Lawrence River, is jigging. And I love jigging, right? I love jigging, but it's not easy to do. Like when you get a bite, like these fish come over, they're just like, you think a big mussie's going to just climb up and rip the rod out of your hand. But no, they come and they taste it. They put their mouth on it. And then you got to really violently set the hook, because you got to surprise them. They're not going to surprise you. You got to surprise them. And then, because if you don't, you get your bait back and then you look at it and it's got all these teeth marks, these cut marks in it where it was holding on, but then it let go as soon as you softly jerk the bait. So there's something to be said about jigging for muskie. And there's a couple of things I want to mention here. One is a scientist was talking about fizzing muskie. And he says you should never try to fizz a muskie. First of all, you don't know the biology, and the chances of you hurting the muskie, puncturing its kidney, and it doesn't have that same swim bladder. It's more a bladder where it swallows air, and the bladder's more in its stomach. And they have a valve. So if you see the valve, the stomach is a little bit puffed up, you can actually push down on the stomach a little bit and push the air out. So that's one thing you can do to you don't really need to use a needle or anything. They can let that gas out. They can actually gulp air. They can jump out of the water, stick their head out of the water and gulp air in to take air into that bladder. So they know how to fill it and reduce it. So that's one thing if you're jigging. But the other thing is how do you keep those lures from getting hung up on the bottom? This is where your sonar is going to come in really handy, because every jig, every tube jig, every jig that's made out of rubber, with the exception of the single hook, typical, hair jig, all of these jigs have multiple treble hooks. So if you're dragging them on the bottom, you got to be super careful. You're going to be losing your jigs pretty quick. They're going to get snagged. You're going to lose them. So you really got to be watching your depth sounder, making sure how much, when the bottom's coming up, you got to reel up before you get there. And when it's dropping back down, you got to, lower it down right away, because the fish are going to be hiding right behind those lumps, right behind those humps and so on in the current. So if you don't drop right away as you're coming over those humps, as you're drifting downstream, your jig's going to go flying right over their heads. You're not going to get them. So it really becomes a precision type of fishing. And you can do that. And even if you got some of these tube and other jigs with the 2 or 3 treble hooks on them, you want to definitely watch that electronics to keep them from dragging. It's like bottom bouncing with walleye rigs, right? Yeah. If you're not paying attention, that thing starts to tumble and drag along the ground. It's just a mess.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's if bottom bouncing and this type of fishing, very similar, very, very similar, because you're doing this in current. You're doing this in current, and you're fishing current breaks with these jigs. But they're doing it because they realize walleye go deep when they feed, and they quite often come shallow to get the sun on their body to metabolize their food. And that's when we see them, is in the shallower water, and we cast to them, and they're not really interested in eating because they've already got a belly full, but they're always curious. So they'll follow the bait around and follow it back to the boat, and then you can trick them into biting there with your figure 8. But it's not a hungry bite. But when they're deeper, that's when they're feeding, because they're feeding on suckers and things like that at the bottom, right? So that's when they're feeding. They feed dark in the darker, deeper, cooler waters, and then they come shallow into the sun to warm up their bodies, to speed up their metabolism, to help with their digestion. So jigging is a good idea. Plus, you're getting fish that aren't, you're not trying to go after these fish in the shallow water with the typical baits, the casting baits that we all love to use. You're going after them with something different, something they haven't seen so much. So load up on your giant jigs, you guys, and give it a shot. A nice 7.5 foot, 7 foot heavy, extra heavy rod. I'd still go with some heavier braid, because if you do get hung up, you can always just wrap your braid around the cleat in the boat and just put it in gear, drive ahead slow until your hook straightens out, and at least you got your bait back. You just need to replace that bent hook.
Right. Is there any concerns like because I heard about this aspect of fishing them on the weekend, and of course, when it comes to walleye, you're concerned about the trauma that you're going to inflict on these fish by bringing them up from depths. I'm assuming it's very similar to that for muskie as well. They are when they do come up from deeper water, you have to be very cautious on how they're retrieved. You've mentioned about the air bladder. But are there any other concerns jigging a fish like this, in depths greater than, say, 35, 40 feet?
I don't think there's going to be that many opportunities where you can get that deep to fish them, right? So if you're fishing in 20 to 30 feet, you're probably going to be okay.
Okay.
If you want to start going into 50 feet of water, I would think, well, you might want to question yourself whether you need to go and do that. Do I need to see? I see that you see that mark down there, in 50 feet. Are you going to go down and do it? Are you going to go down there and take a chance? I think, reel them up fast or reel them up slow. You don't got a choice with a muskie. You got to get them to the boat. You got to get them in the net, unhook them, measure them if you need to, but then just let them get back, keep them in the net, keep them in the water and let them get back down. They're pretty powerful fish. They're really strong swimmers. So they'll get themselves back down. From what the scientists say, they're not as delicate as bass or walleye when it comes to this type of barometric issues.
Interesting. I had another comment that was placed on our CFN page in regards to it was during the M.C.I. event on the weekend.
Yeah,
and he said that he was interested in pushing a ban on social media pictures of the redness in a muskie's fins. So in other words, I of course reached out to him and said, are you saying that you would like to have the fish revived first before you take the pictures in order to get all of that lactic acid out of the fish's muscles and so there'd be less stress on the fish? I'm not 100% sure exactly what he was looking for, but
that's interesting.
I found it very interesting. Like, I can understand you wouldn't want to take a picture of a stressed fish. It would be much better to take one that, obviously he's a lot hardier and you've done your best to try and revive it. Makes sense.
Scotty, I'll be honest with you. I listen and read the science reports about taking big fish out of the water, right? And the trout anglers in the summertime, they don't take fish out of the water. You go down south, you fish, for tarpon. You don't take them out of the water. You go out west, you're fishing for sturgeon. You don't bring them out of the water. There's a lot more. Every year we're adding fish to that list of fish. You just don't take them out of the water. You don't bring them over the gunnel. No reason to. And yet, we still get, like last summer, 80 plus degree temperature at the surface, top 6 feet, top 3 feet of the rivers and so on. And you're bringing these fish in from maybe deeper water, cooler water. It's right away, that's a shock for them because they're coming up, from cooler to very warm water. And then you're releasing them into that warm water. But first you're taking them out and exposing them to the direct sun. Do we need to do that? Do we need to add that to their, to the chance of them not making it by taking them out of the water? I don't know. I think you can do a lot with underwater cameras these days and good. We all have big nets and, some good excitement shots, little videos of, your friend taking a little video as you're playing the fish and it's jumping and you're, trying to bring it in and so on. We can take a lot more action shots. These grip and grins and then you see, even like the TV hosts and you hear about some of the things they try to pull off, they need that grip and grin shot because that's what everyone expects. There's been some that have been really soundly trashed on social media for pulling that crap off, with muskie. And I think if you want to be an ethical angler, think about whether you need to have that grip and grin shot and whether you need to measure every muskie you caught, or whether, you just do it for that one fish that is going to be a PB, and then still think, well, I measured it, I got the measurements, but do I really need to hold it so everyone could see it and so I can prove that I caught it? No one's going to, if it's a world record, that's one thing, but no one's going to deny you or call you a liar if you didn't hold the fish up.
No, and it's an interesting point you bring up, and you're right, Anthony. He that's probably exactly what he meant. Just that if it's stressed and it looks like it's stressed, it's perhaps a better idea as from an ethical standpoint to just release the fish. But one thing that I did learn this weekend, again at the Muskie's Odyssey, was the importance of a personal journal. So most anglers keep a very detailed journal, and it's incredible the detail that the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry want when it comes to some of your catches.
Wasn't that amazing? What they learn from that? It's so amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely incredible. Like they want possibly like a scale sample, like in great detail of every catch. And when Arunas was talking about the different genetic strains in the different rivers, just in the Georgian Bay area, holy crap! It blew my mind that there's so many different genetic strains of muskie in all of the the rivers and areas of really geographically not a very huge area.
And how much they know, like the amount of effort an angler makes to catch a fish, on a body of water, and then they've got all these reports and they compare it year after year after year. And even though the technology we're using gets better every year, and yet on some of these bodies of water, it's taking us longer and longer. 10,000 casts this year, 15,000 next, and another 17,000 a year after that. And then these scientists know, okay, here's a body of water that's slipping into the trouble zone, so we need to do something about that. We need to react. So these angler records, I wrote an article. It just came out in Outdoor Canada magazine. I should share the link on that. It's all about angler apps and fish logs and fishery management, and it's theirs, and where this is going, where this is all going. So I'll send you the link, Scotty, and we can put it up on the CFN site there. But it's a short little article, but anyways, we had a lot of fun writing it. I had a lot of fun writing it, and the editors had a lot of fun correcting it.
That's awesome.
Sure
well, Lawrence, listen, as always, buddy, really enjoy and look forward to these segments that you do. It's just a wealth of information that you share us. Again, can't say it enough. The documentary, What Lies Below, if you haven't seen it, by all means, take the time. It's incredible, the work that went into that. As Christina mentioned, there's an emotional aspect to it too. And you can tell that there were certain times during that documentary that you could see that you were affected emotionally by some of the things that you were seeing. So I didn't
want that thing to be about me. I kept telling them it's not about me. It's not about being blind, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? The director, he'd sneak something in once in a while. And what do you do? Just say, shut up, leave me alone, turn the camera off. I answered.
Well, anyway, as I said, on behalf of CFN, thanks so much for sharing that and putting that together, because there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into that. But
family, my wife did it so much. Yeah.
Keep doing what you're doing. We'll see you next week, my friend.
All right, man. Thank you.
You take care. And last but not least, we got Jay Barnucz coming on. But before we do, here is a word from his sponsor.
Want to know the difference between power bait and other soft plastics? Ask the fish. Berkeley scientists have thousands of flavors tested on thousands of fish. Natural, man-made. Every bait that's ever hit the water. No matter the shape, size, or color, power bait is the only one that is scientifically proven. Fish bite and will not let go.
Jason Barnucz is in the house. Thanks for sticking around, bud. I appreciate the patience you have.
No worries, man.
My word, what a jam-packed show we've had tonight.
It's informative. Like I won't lie, the kids were on spring break last week, so I kind of got a little get away from the screen time a little bit. But I caught some of the seminars, but I'm gonna rewatch a lot of them, especially the science ones. Like some of the cool work that's going on with muskies. I'm going to give a shout out to Davin Heinbuch. Davin is one of the directors at Muskies Canada. He's a good colleague of mine. He works for the Osable Bayfield Conservation Authority. And I've seen some of the presentations he's given looking at the muskie log and the journal data that they collect. And it not only does it make muskie anglers better anglers, but that data is used in partnership with the Ministry of Natural Resources, and it's going to help to provide knowledge to create better fisheries, better muskie fisheries in Ontario and across Canada. It's amazing.
The telemetry one that Arunas and Jeff Amos put together, holy smokes.
Yeah.
We'd done a dry run, so I got to see some of the material beforehand and was blown away. But when they did the presentation, they went into greater detail, some of their findings, and it's amazing. Like, as I said, to think in an area of Georgian Bay, and obviously you have the Spanish River, you got the Moon River, you got all these estuaries and rivers that feed into Georgian Bay and Lake Huron, but there's like 15 different genetic strains of muskie. Blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind.
And what's cool about that, and one thing that's cool about fish in general is that fish need water. They can't just move across land. And so in North America, especially in our part of North America, fish are broken up. Actually, glaciers is the reason why a lot of these genetics exist. Now, stocking influences it as well, but looking at natural strains that are on the landscape, you have a lot of different drainages. You have the Great Lakes drainage, okay? It's called the Great Lakes refugia, if you're going to talk in glacial terms. You have the Atlantic refugia. You have the Mississippian refugia and the Arctic refugia. And over time, all of those were connected. But then over time, as glaciers receded and the earth rebounded, they all became separate from each other. And that's how a lot of our freshwater species came to be in this part of North America, like 8,000 years ago. Like, for example, ciscos. Ciscos are really cool because they're found nowhere else except for in the Great Lakes and in the Arctic.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they're the what's the word I'm thinking of? Like, Darwin studied the finches in the Galapagos Islands. The ciscos are still evolving. They're very plastic. In fact, you'll often hear ichthyologists refer to ciscos as the cisco flock instead of different species, because they haven't fully speciated because their genetics are so closely linked to each other. Just some cool science, man. I'm going
really cool.
Going full fish nerd here right now. But muskies cover such a broad area because they're in the Mississippian drainage, they're in the Great Lakes drainage, and so all those different strains have just kind of evolved on their own. And actually, Chris Wilson, who's a M&R scientist at Trent, he's a geneticist, and I've done some cool work for Chris over the years, collecting tissue samples of different species so he can do some of his, like, the statistics he can run with these different genetics. It's like, I say that fisheries biology, we're all very specialized. Like, it's kind of like in a factory, everyone has a job. Well, I do one job. Like, sometimes I'm the sweeper and sometimes I'm the HVAC guy, whatever role I got to do. But these geneticists are so specialized, and the data they can derive from a little piece of tissue is amazing what they can do.
Well, and really, as part of the log, as Mike has said, I don't know if there's anglers out here in the CFN community that do carry a log and keep an accurate log. But if you are targeting muskie, it is part of what you pack. You pack a waterproof bag that has a book in it, and yes, they want scale samples. They want to take an actual scale out of the fish. They definitely want weather related facts, whether it be windy, overcast, this, that, and everything else. And the big one is water temperature. They definitely want to have the water temperature in which you were catching it in. But it's all I could say after listening to some of these the science sessions was thank you. Holy crap! Thank you for your work, because I can't imagine the amount of work that goes into it.
I'm going to give the viewers a little bit of juice on how you can. So people think, how do I write this stuff down? Because I never write my stuff down. Here's a tip: you're out fishing. Okay, let's back up. Who's got a smartphone? I got a smartphone. Everyone's got a smartphone. Who has lost their smartphone and got mad because they lost all their photos at some point in time? Okay. go create a Google Photos account. It backs up all your photos, right? So every time I come home after a trip, my photos are all backed up on a Google photo drive, and I can go back later and delete them if I want to. Here's a tip. Catch a nice fish. You're on your boat. Take a picture of your fish, release your fish, whatever you want to do. You harvest your fish, whatever you want to do. Take a picture of your screen on your depth finder. It has a water temperature and the depth, and sometimes your lat and long is on there as well. So
awesome.
What was the water temperature that day? I know what day I took that picture because when it uploads to Google, there's a timestamp and a date stamp on that photograph. That was on May 17th, 2020. I also know I caught that fish. So there's the picture of that fish. There's a picture of my depth sounder, 17 feet of water. Water temperature was 68 degrees. Boom. I know exactly what. And if you want, do the side image do the split screen with your GPS and just cursor over it, highlight your waypoint. That'll show up too. Because some of us, it's great that these units can have 2,000 waypoints. Who remembers exactly which waypoint you were on when you caught that fish? So take a picture of the screen. Take a picture of your screen, and you can remember the depth and water temperature you were at when you caught it. Just a little tip.
Well, and this is actually interesting. Jerry's mentioning that M.C.I members can do their logs online from the water. That's really cool.
Yeah. I listened to Davin's presentation a while ago. I actually jumped on. It was kind of funny. I think Hamilton chapter did Hamilton or KW Muskies chapter did a Facebook Live, and I saw Davin was going to be on it, so I log on, and Davin sees me and he goes, "What are you doing here? You're not a Muskie guy." And I go, "Yeah, but I'm a science guy." And I listened to how Davin, like he is in the web of that whole log and how that data gets used to manage muskie and also to help anglers catch more muskie and the award systems that they have in place. Like it's really cool, man. Really, really cool.
Amen. I can't say enough about it, and I know I've said lots already about it, but as I said, incredible group. They do some incredible things, and the future of muskie looks very bright.
Well, and again, another positive, we could talk about negatives right now, but positive, all that stuff is online now, man. I don't have to go to the Muskie Odyssey. I can watch all those videos whenever I want. Isn't that great? Like we've had this with the Spring Fishing and Boat Show. We got this with the Muskie Odyssey. You and I and a bunch of us on here, we're all seminar junkies, right? So I can go rewatch these seminars anytime I want. Isn't that awesome? Like that is a big
and the thing is it's about Canadian waters, because a lot of this kind of content isn't really necessarily available. It is, but it doesn't deal with Canadian waters. And the fact that they shared it to their YouTube channel and of course, the social media and the world was outstanding. But as I said to Peter, when we were doing a lot of the mind busting leading up to it, and we were talking about the virtual Odyssey and of course the auction aspect of it, I said when they were explaining that to me, I said, Peter, you're going to want to do that now and forever. And the amount of money that they were able to bring in with that auction. Holy smokes!
I heard some of the numbers being rhymed off in the beginning of the show, and there's a lot of zeros being rhymed off. But I'm not surprised. Like my friends who are muskie anglers. Okay, so I tend to hang out with fanatical anglers all the time, and they're fanatical for their own species. Well, they're going to talk about walleye tonight because I know that's right on the top of your mind. Scotty, and muskie anglers are just like that. And once they taste the muskie, pardon the phrase, they're gone. That's all they want to do, and they'll make fun of bass and they'll make fun of steelhead because muskie is it. And I get it. They are just an awesome fish. And I target muskies on occasion, not normally. Where I live in Southern Ontario, muskies is kind of a late season thing. I'm usually steelhead in that time of year. But when I was living in the Kawarthas, I caught a lot of muskies, and they are just an awesome fish. And they are a fish of legend. Like when you're a new angler, and regardless of your age, and that first 40-inch muskie follows your bait to the boat, like you're kind of scared. Like who isn't? Like but like in a good way, like a good scare. Like you're like, wow, look at that thing. Like, isn't that amazing? And if you haven't been through that, you know, you need to experience that. And I think though that muskie fishing is kind of specialized. So I really think it is also one of those species that, and I like the word Yvonne used tonight, was mentor. I really love that word. Like I love that word a lot. So shout out to Yvonne, because I think about mentoring and how important mentoring is, and muskie fishing is mentoring is very important. So, but go hire a muskie guide, you know, hook up with a muskie guide and go out, and don't just go to catch fish, but to learn about it, and then make your choice. Maybe you'll become an avid muskie angler, or maybe you're just going to hook up with a guide once a year and have a chance at a 50-inch muskie, right? So, speaking of that, I have to do this. So the kids went to bed early tonight because they start back to school tomorrow, whatever that means. So this was left on my desk. Okay. So this is that's actually Trevor's handwriting. His sister's a much neater writer than Trevor is. But so we went and picked up my new custom measuring board for Mike Park. We drove there one day on spring break. Beautiful day. Went to Chatham. The trees were blooming. Beautiful day. But Mike gave Trevor a couple of these beauty spinners.
Nice.
Now, there was talk on the way home about going pike fishing for them with these. That's on hold. Now, if we were to use these for brown trout this weekend, and if I would like to see a brown trout eat that, because it would be a big brown. It would be a big brown. But anyways, just some beautiful custom spinners from Mike Parker. So big shout out to Mike. I actually saw Mike and Donna were doing a live at the same time as CFN live tonight. So head over to Handlebars and check out their live show they were doing tonight. But I was kind of funny that I had Trevor doing some chores tonight, and this is what showed up on my keyboard. Thanks, Mike.
And well said, Trevor. I can't thank the Handlebars family enough for what they do for CFN and our CFN Fish Off. And Mike, he texted me after the show, and he said, you know, the bump boards are ready, and when do you need to buy? And I said, Bud, right now I'm just hoping we can run the Fish Off.
Yeah.
You know, over there, he's a big man with a huge heart, and I tell you, CFN can't say enough about our Handlebars family. They're amazing.
When you were growing up, Scotty, did your dad take you to like one of his friends' houses, and you had to stand there for 2 hours and just listen to your old man and some guy talk for, sorry, pardon my French, for 2 hours?
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep.
Trevor to live that in Mike's driveway one morning last week. We stood there for 2 hours and talked fishing in Mike's driveway, but Trevor loved it. But we hop in the drive away later, and he goes, Dad, that's pretty awesome. You guys can just randomly talk fishing for 2 hours. I go, Bud, we could have talked longer, but we had to go catch some fish. So anyways. So a lead in, Alicia chimed in there. Yeah. So we had a great spring break. The weather wasn't awesome. There were a couple nice days. I'm not going to complain, but we had some rain, had some cold, made the most of it. Stephanie did not get her catfish yet. She's a little bit of a fair weather angler. I'm not going to, she's the first one to say, I'm not going out today. So Trevor and I went out. We actually landed, I think we were just shy of 30 catfish over the week. Several catfish were in that sort of 28 to 31 inch range. So that's between about 8-9 pounds up to about 10 to one was just shy of 15 pounds. But channel catfish, what I've learned is their length and their weight are so variable. Like they're so fat, some of them, when Alicia will be the first one to say this. She likes to pat them on the belly. She likes to give the Buddha rub to the big channel catfish, right? So if you're ever wearing a crop top around Alicia, you might be getting a Buddha rub from her, because she just loves patting that catfish belly. But some of them are so fat. It's amazing how fat they are. But, we had a great week. And what was cool, too, is over the past 3 weeks, I fished in an online tournament that's sponsored by the Thames River Anglers Association. And I really want to mention these guys, and I'm going to throw a post here in the forum. Like, these are a grassroots club they're out of Thames River area, so London area. They actually run their own hatchery. They do a lot for the Thames River watershed, bringing a lot of awareness, doing a lot of stewardship work. You see pictures of electrofishing. They do stream restoration work. And so all the proceeds from the event went to supporting the Thames River anglers. So big shout out to the Thames River anglers. Scotty, it's those little grassroots associations that make the world go round, man. It does. So
it is. It's amazing.
Shout out to them.
You're starting to see some of the floating nets at some of the marinas. Metro East anglers are stocking their fish, getting them ready to grow them out. I've seen all kinds of different, like the Port Credit Group with James Shembry. They do the same thing where they put the floating cage down at the marina, and people go down and they make sure the fish are fed. But it's all of these little things that have helped grow a fishery just in Lake Ontario, never mind the rest of Canada, but just in Lake Ontario, that is being done across our country. That really, listen, they don't get awards for this. There's no money, there's no acclaim. You do it for the sheer love of fish and your environment.
It's a thankless job. You think about, and I don't really want to rhyme off too many because I won't be able to mention them all. But like the Richard Elliots of the world, individuals like that. And there's even more individuals out there that you would never know because they're not on Facebook, because they're a retired individual now who goes every morning to feed the fish in the pen. They don't do it for any other reason but to know they're helping the resource. And there's literally hundreds of these people out there that we don't even know. But it's groups like the Thames River Anglers, and everyone has their local angler association. Be a member. You know what? I've been a member of the Thames River Anglers before. I've let my membership lapse, unfortunately, now, but I usually renew it. And even though I won't go to any of their events because the summer's busy for me for work, I want to support them. If I can at least support them by buying a membership, that's what I'll do. So kudos to those grassroots organizations, man. They make the world go round. They inspire me a lot.
It's true. And as I said, when you start to see where the money that Muskies Canada raises, where it goes and what it goes into when it comes to their beloved fish, it's just amazing. Like I totally understand why the money was flying around like it did this weekend, because they do some stuff that they should be very proud to be involved with, and I know they are.
They're like the big game of the fish world. You hear about like hunting. Fishing can't touch hunting when it comes to conservation fundraising. Like the hunters are like they're out there, man. Like duck hunters, deer hunters, turkey hunters, big game hunters. Like some of the money they raise is in the millions of dollars annually. And I wish that more people out there who don't understand our passions were more aware of the great things that happen through organizations like Muskies Canada. When organizations like Muskies Canada accept the fact that our government agencies aren't funded well enough to generate the information that anglers want to know about their beloved species. That's the truth. Amen. And it's subsidized by non-government organizations like Muskies Canada. Like that telemetry work that goes on, each of those tags is like $500 for one tag. But that's 10 years of data for that one fish. And you tag 20 or 30 of those fish, 20 fish is $10,000 in tags. But that data is the value. You can't put a value on that information. You can't. You can't.
Absolutely. And it was amazing to see, they have videos, and I'm sure some of them have been shared on Facebook, and some folks have already seen them. But to see how far a fish will travel in the Lake Erie Basin, and some of the northern part just blew my mind how far these fish will travel. It's incredible.
Yeah, and over like open, like it's like open ocean. Like you think a muskie, okay, a muskie being a muskie, they're going to relate to its structure. Like you always, we had mentioned tonight about Eagle Lake, and the Linders and all those muskie articles you've read talk about rock piles and, windblown shorelines on Canadian Shield lakes. Dude, they're swimming around Point Pelee.
Yeah.
Right? they're taking a swing by Port Burwell. What's out there? Clay and sand. There's nothing out there. Like, but they're there. That's where they're swimming past. Like, they go. Those muskies are defying everything Al Linder and Jim Sarek and Pete Mena ever told me about muskies. Those Lake Erie muskies are blowing out the mold. But it's true, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But Jim put a good point on it, though, where Jim said, you know, the information that we have available to us now that was available to us 10, 20, 30 years ago, like it's and not just for biologists and technicians and scientists, but for anglers, you know, the learning curve is a lot less steep now. If you want to really get into it, it's a lot less steep now. But that's great.
And really the amount of time, I think that's what gets lost. And when you listen to the interview that he had with John Anderson, you get a sense of the amount of devoted time that's put into angling back then to learn about the fish, where you don't have to spend that kind of time. Maybe you do on a body of water to find out where the fish hang out, but to learn about targeting a species, man, it's on YouTube, it's on Google, it's everywhere. Whereas they had to put in the time on the water. So really, it's my hat's off to all of those mentors, as we call, or anglers who have followed before us. The amount of time they've spent to learn our passion. Hats off.
100%, man. 100%. No, I need to get caught up on all that good muskie information that's just sitting there ready for me to. I won't probably watch it, but I do this time of year. I'm doing lots of writing permits and reports and stuff, and I'm working away. And it's just like listening to a podcast. You can just put those presentations on in the background and just listen, and that's good enough for me. That's some great information.
You'll love it. Now, you wanted to talk a little bit about walleye tonight.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about a project I was involved with back in 2002, and I went to the Muskegon River in Michigan. And I went to a place called the Croton Dam. Now, Croton Dam's kind of a funny name, because there's a Croton Dam just down the road from me, too. There's 2 Croton Dams in the world, and I've been to both. And the Muskegon River is a famous steelhead fishery in Michigan. But every spring that they do walleye spawning, they do egg collections there. And it's done annually by the Michigan DNR, and they have such incredible data from that survey. And, I know that there's been some concern in the media recently about the low water we're having, and we should have some concern that we don't have the volume of water right now in the rivers that we're used to in the spring. But they actually did a study in 2009 and 2010 at the Muskegon. Now, they can do it there because they're always there. They do egg collections there every year. But so this is just information from the Muskegon. But I think it gives us a little bit of insight into natural variation. And, should we be concerned when water levels are low? Maybe. But I'm going to give you a positive twist on it. So in 2009 and 2010, they looked at water flows in the Muskegon River, near Croton Dam. And they actually found that in 2009, the flows in that spring so it was a kind of colder spring. And the flows were very uneven, up and down, but pretty high and pretty cold weather. Okay. So in the 2010, the waters were much lower and much warmer. And so there was concern about, what would happen to the fish under those 2 different scenarios: high cold water, low warm water, which is what we're having right now, right, Scotty? Like, we have a concern about these water levels. Well, not as many eggs not as many fish and larvae were detected in 2010 as 2009, right? But in that low warm year, there was more reproduction, like greater percent of success happened in those spawned eggs because the heat units in the river were more, right? So, and the flow, although it was lower, the flow was more stable. It wasn't going up and down, up and down. And I thought that was really cool. Like, I never thought about that when it comes to walleye spawning. And so what ended up being a low water year and a warm year produced more walleye than a cold year with unpredictable flows. I thought that was pretty cool.
It is. It's really cool, and the research that I've been able to do because of our American counterparts on the other side of the border, the work that they've done. A lot of that information back in the 80s and 90s that I was reading was because of all their hard work. And you're 100% right. And sometimes it can be said, just as you mentioned, that a warmer summer or a warmer spring can sometimes be to the benefit of a walleye spawn, simply because the walleye will hatch at a certain temperature. If it takes a long time to get to that, you've got fungus, you've got river runoff from thunderstorms and rain events. So the longer those eggs take to hatch, the less chance they have for a successful hatch. So, there's a lot of what I don't know is what it does to the walleye. So if you have a 10 to 16 day incubation period in the egg, are those fish hardier than ones that are hatched in 6 days?
Yeah.
Not a lot of science is into that, but it's an interesting question.
Yeah, like I think the idea is that if you can just put more larval walleye into the flow of the river, because everyone should know that unlike a lot of other species, once those larval walleye, once they come out of the egg, like they're gone. They're like basically pelagic. The current just washes them back to the lake of origin, more or less. Or other species like trout and salmon, they'll hatch, they'll kind of live amongst the rocks for a while, and they'll kind of emerge and start to feed. But walleye, they're mobile pretty much right away, And so I think that that's a good question you bring, and I just think that when it comes to walleye, it just shows that sometimes they're just pretty amazing animals, man, and they're a fish I don't work a lot with, but I really enjoy reading up on species I don't work with. And so I don't work with walleye a lot. And so I came across that article, and I was trying to find a picture of me from the Muskegon Dam from 20 years ago. That was a really fun trip. I remember doing that trip very well. And I was actually on the shock boat helping to net the walleye. We were doing a study looking at river red horse, which in Canada is an endangered species. And so we were there collecting genetic samples, tissue samples for red horse to compare river red horse in Michigan to river red horse in Ontario. And they said, but you got to come help us net big walleye. And I'm like, yeah, no problem. So that was a fun trip back in my younger days. But another thing I wanted to bring up tonight was, with walleye spawn on everyone's mind. And I know Christina was sharing some good PSAs recently talking about how important walleye are. I've gotten in some Facebook discussions recently from some people talking, and I hear this so much about, when fish get to a certain age, they lose their reproductive viability. I'm going to tell you right now, the vast majority of science says fish are spawners till they die, and they spawn well. And we aren't just talking like, we could talk about a linear curve, which is a 45-degree angle, right? No. Walleye eggs are logarithmic. Like the bigger the fish, the more eggs. And I'm going to give a couple of stats here. A Lake Erie walleye that's about 2.5 years old, which is about age of maturity, that walleye produces 50,000 eggs on average. A 6-year-old walleye from Lake Erie, which is that's kind of like a little past middle age in Lake Erie because it grows so big now, 190,000 eggs. That's not a straight line. That's a lot more angle. In Lake Winnipeg, a 4.5-year-old fish, which is about age of maturity in Lake Winnipeg, 30,000 eggs. But that same fish at 13 years old, because they live longer there, is at 110,000 eggs. So that large Lake Winnipeg walleye at 13 years old produces 110,000 eggs. A 6-year-old Lake Erie walleye is 190,000 eggs. Yeah. Like if you're living in northern areas, those large northern walleye, man, they are the I don't know what do you want to call that? Like you gotta let them go, man. They are the alphas, the betas, the queens, the kings of the population. You need to let those fish go and let them swim. It's so important. If you respect and love your walleye fisheries, we need to release those big fish a lot.
Buddy, that you're ripping the words right out of my mouth. There's nothing I can emphasize more. You're 100% right, and I will do my absolute best at CFN to try and promote that through the promotion of seeing anglers do it. And this past winter, I was absolutely amazed. And I know Jim McLaughlin and I talked about it at great length at one point, off the live behind the scenes. And he said there were an awful lot of release videos this year, more so than he's seen any other year. And of course, he's been on social media longer than I have, so he would know. But he said it's incredible to see how many release videos people are doing of these fish. And I said, Jim, and every single one of them that I can get my hands on, I'm going to put together in a feature video and try and promote the heck out of it, because no truer words have been spoken when it comes to walleye. The importance of those large egg wagons, those large hens. They are, in a lot of cases, are maintaining your walleye fisheries, and they're so vital to our system.
And it's not just it's all year round. It's like, no matter what time of year you catch that big fish, whether it's caught close to the spawn, winter time, middle of summer, doesn't matter when you catch that fish. It has a value, a big value, and enjoy the walleye that you can harvest. But don't harvest more than you need to. Like, it is so important to protect those, all species especially. But, we'll talk about walleye. And I think that, in Ontario, Scotty, we have like literally some of the best walleye fishing in the world.
Amen.
For reason. And, that we have the Great Lakes, including in that the Bay of Quinte, the St. Lawrence River. Look at what's going on in the Detroit River. But this won't last forever. These go through cycles. We've seen it. It happens all the time. So I'm so happy to see people enjoying it, but release those big fish, keep those smaller fish. Slot limits are kind of a challenge for some to understand, but usually what the slot limits are trying to do is they're trying to let that walleye spawn once before it gets eaten. Because if you eat them before they get to spawn, they're not contributing to that population. And in Ontario, and not just Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, doesn't matter. We are so reliant on natural reproduction. If you eat that walleye before it could reproduce, you've done a disservice. Like, I'm not saying to keep a big walleye. I'm not saying to keep a really small one, but let's talk about selective harvest, right? I'm getting my Linder quotes. I'm getting ready for Al. Is what's happening. But selective harvest is that, Scotty, that term has been used for, how old am I? 46. So that term has been used since I was Trevor's age, right? 30 years I've known that term because it was talked about in the In Fisherman magazine. And I think the selective harvest is important. And so, be selective, but don't harvest more than you're going to eat, and don't take all the big ones. That's all I'm going to say about walleye. Just, it's a good time of year with walleye spawn, and I just thought we should bring it up tonight.
Well, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Here's the choice, A or B. Now, obviously, some people have their beliefs when it comes to large walleye and how viable their eggs are. What would you rather have? 100% of a 3-pound walleye, all the eggs, or would you rather 10% of a 10-pound walleye's eggs?
Ooh. 10% of a 10-pound walleye's eggs, or 100% of a 3-pound walleye's eggs. I want 100% of the 3-pound walleye's eggs.
You would? So I would be the other way. I would want, if I'm gonna get eggs out of a 10-pound walleye, I'm only gonna get 10% of them. I find that those eggs, because of the genetic makeup.
Gotcha. No, you're right. I changed my answer. You're right. Now that makes sense. That does.
I would rather those eggs. So even if they're not viable, and I, again, Jay, you touched on it. I couldn't have said it better. But even if they're not viable, all of them, some of them are, and I don't care if it's 10% or 80%. I would much rather want the eggs of a larger fish than 100% of a smaller one.
And those are the ones we got to protect. Like, and so again, I'm going to stress out there that the science tells us that the way fish are made, they're spawning machines. They have one purpose on this planet, and that is to breed. That's all fish are born to do, is to breed. And so the bigger they get, the better at breeding they are. There's a reason why they're that way. And so we need to release those big fish. It's so important to do that. And it's better for the resource.
Christine has asked a great question, and I'd like to see your take on this. When catching a spawning female and you unhook your bait, is there a certain way you can hold the fish to help, I guess, not having those eggs fall out as much as
that's a good question, Christina. You know what? That's going to be one of those things about keeping that fish in the water as much as possible, because it's gravity that pulls those eggs out, right? So, when Trevor and I were perch fishing on the spring break, we went out to Long Point Bay here before they closed the boat ramps, and before the boat ramps were closed, and we caught a lot of perch. Well, we had perch eggs, and actually, can I tell a funny story? It's a little bit PG. It's a little PG. Okay, so we're out fishing on Long Point Bay, and we're covered in perch eggs and perch sperm. Okay, it's flying everywhere. And if anyone's fished for perch in the spring, that is standard. I have friends who will not fish for perch in their boat because they can't stand the mess, okay? So I took a picture of Trevor with his brand new Hallie Hansen rain pants all covered in perch sperm. So I sent a photo of him to the girls that we have a family chat, and Stephanie, being 11 years old and rather innocent, she likes to call Trevor. She likes to be like the teasing little sister. Oh, baby Trevor, baby Trevor. Well, she actually said in the chat, "Oh, did baby Trevor spill his milk?" ? With a smiley face. And she doesn't know quite what we're talking about here. And I was laughing. I bet you could have heard me laughing across Lake Erie, man. I was laughing so hard when I got that text from her. And she literally thought Trevor was covered in milk, but that's how much perch sperm he was covered in. But the eggs, like if you want to preserve those eggs, back to Christina's question. Sorry for my PG-13 tangent, but I had to share that because kids are great. It's important to just keep that fish in the water as much as possible if you can, because it's gravity that just helps them come out. So
absolutely. Douglas, all the way up from Nunavut. I could relate so well. As we get food from the country, whether it's land, game, or fish, we get what we need only because Nunavut is so expensive.
Oh,
obviously, to buy groceries. Absolutely. And I would say
absolutely. Even now with what's going on in the pandemic, I'm sure there are some people out there that are hard up for work that could use to catch a few fish to subsidize their income. And they're not going to sell the fish. They're going to eat the fish, right? So I do wish we could go fishing more right now, but we have to let things happen the way they're going to happen. But I was talking to some people today. Fishing is allowed. Okay, fishing. Scotty, we are right back to last April. Now, cases are 10 times more cases, and there's the ICUs. The modeling last April was where we could go. Well, we're there now. Okay. Fishing is still permitted. A friend of mine was chatting to an MPP today. He shared me an email thread that was sent. Fishing is allowed. It's encouraged to stay close to home. So boat ramps aren't open. It's a struggle, but parks are still open. Green spaces are still open. People can still go fishing. I do feel for people that are in more urban areas. I do. You can't go to that nice country stream that's 45 minutes or an hour away. I'm like, my heart aches. It really does. But it's important that we all do the right thing. But fishing is allowed, and this isn't going to last. This is not going to last, but fishing is allowed. So we're just, for Trevor and I, and we're going to change gears. We're going to go trout fishing on Saturday, trout opener. One of his jobs today, not being in school, was to do inventory of trout spinners that we have. Okay. He actually wants to put away his float rod and just focus on, we had so much fun catching big stream browns last year that he's kind of focused on brown trout right now. Cause he's like, Dad, I think steelhead's for us around here, the steelhead run ends early because we're so much warmer than the Ganny or those Lake Ontario trips. The Lake Erie trips, they're cold water streams, but the peak spawning period usually peaks earlier for us. And so the dropbacks are gone. There's always a few around. I'm not gonna say there aren't, but man, there's nothing better than catching a nice, 16 to 20 inch stream brown trout on a spinner with a little ultralight rod. That is pretty fun, I have to admit. So I think we're gonna do that. We're gonna just kind of put the long rods away and get the short rods out. But I'm still gonna bring, dude. I said to Trevor, I'm still gonna bring some creek candy beads and some pink worms, and you don't know what you're gonna find. But I don't know if I'll bring the long rod out this weekend. I'll probably bring the short rod out this weekend and give it a go. So we'll see.
Hey, listen, and I want to thank you for jumping on board like you did for Thursday. Fernando got to me this morning about catfishing, and you said absolutely. So this Thursday, 8 o'clock, join Jamie and Trevor, and we're going to be discussing catfishing.
I'm going to talk. Let me give you a little preview. So I actually sat down today and I put some notes, just kind of pinpointed notes, what I want to talk about. And some of the stuff that's come in the chat today, I know I saw Tony Frano, he talked about water temperature, for example. So, there's some great resources out there for cat fishermen and for all anglers and all species, but you can find out what the water temperatures are for a lot of your local rivers, but a lot of people don't know where to find that. And there's also bait regulation changes. So if you're going to be harvesting cut bait, there's only certain sucker species you can do that with. There's other sucker species. Well, there's some of that are at risk, but there's also other ones that aren't at risk, but look similar to the ones at risk that are no longer acceptable for cut bait. So if you're caught with that sucker in possession, you could be charged. So I'm going to talk about some of these changing regulations that are going to impact just not I say negative impact. That's too negative. We just need to be more aware as anglers. And I'm going to pull out all the stops. We'll bring the catfish gear right here into my I call it the dungeon, the fishing dungeon. And we'll bring it all out. So get ready, Tony. You know what? During this catfish derby, we fished in pouring rain, we fished in snow, we fished in sunshine. I have learned so much about catfish in the past 3 weeks. Even though I've been fishing for them for 10 years. No, 20 years. You know what? It was when I started working for the feds 20 years ago, Scotty, because I started using pickerel rigs off the shoreline in Leamington. That was my first time patterning channel catfish. Pickerel rigs, cast them into the surf out off of Leamington. That's the first time I caught them. Dew worms, gold hooks. You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely, buddy. Well, I look forward, as does Fernando, everybody else who loves catfishing. That, again, is on Thursday, and then we're going to be doing a giveaway right after that. So stay tuned to that. It'll be on Thursday. It'll be another action-packed show, and I look forward to spending some more time with you, buddy.
It'll be great. Thanks, everyone. Great show tonight, man. It went long, but it always is so much good stuff, man. All good. We'll see you Thursday.
All right, buddy. You take care. And on that note, guys, thanks so much for all of you who have stuck around right from the start to the finish. This was a jam-packed show. It started and ended in great fashion, as it always does. But again, I cannot thank you CFNers and the CFN community enough for all of your support. Muskies Canada, we were so visible, and I know they really appreciated that. All the sharing that was done, and I made sure I gave shout outs to the ones who did. Incredible. Anyway, guys, you leave me speechless on a regular basis, but no better time than this past weekend to see all the CFNers involved. Very, very cool. Well, as I said, many things happening. Stay tuned. Lots of great announcements that are coming up, giveaways, meet and greets, all kinds of great stuff. So as Jay said, Jim said, Lauren said, and everybody else, do the right thing, and let's try and get through this so we can get together, man. I miss my community. I miss my CFNers, and I can't wait to see you all. You take care. Have yourself a great night. This was the segment on the weekend. Let's leave with the ladies. Yeah, baby. Have a great week, guys.